2 to order. Sarah, may I have a roll call, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Pallavi?
Here.
Vice Mayor Romack?
Here.
Mayor Henderson?
Here.
Councilmember Klostad?
Here.
And Councilmember Zabriskie?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And we're going to start, like every evening, with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to invite Chief Celine up to lead us in that. And as he comes up, I do want to recognize that today is also Flag Day. Flag Day celebrates the day in 1777 when the United States approved the design of our country's first flag by resolution of the Second Continental Congress. I have a flag in my home that flew above my grandfather's farm for as long as I can remember. And it really was, it was an important symbol to me and to our family. I think that today offers an opportunity for all of us to reflect on where we are as a country, to focus our efforts on unity and inclusivity, and to all work to be better together. So with that, Chief Celine, would you please come up to the podium and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please stand and join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you everyone for joining us this evening. It's nice to have a full house tonight. We're going to move right into item 4.0, which is general public comment. If anyone has a public comment about an item that is not on the agenda this evening, you can step up to the podium right now and you'll have 3 minutes in which to make your public comment. Would anyone like to step to the podium for a general public comment tonight? Seeing none, we will close public comment and move immediately into our presentations. And we're going to start with 2 proclamations this evening. 5.1, Chief Celine, I'm going to ask you to join me back at the podium for our first proclamation this evening. Get situated here. It's not the right one. Okay. Whereas Truckee Fire Protection District Fire Chief Bill Celine is set to retire, and whereas Bill Celine started his firefighter career in 1999 as a volunteer, quickly moving to part-time firefighter paramedic in 2002, then on to full-time in 2003. And whereas in 2008, Bill Celine was promoted to Truckee Fire District Captain, and in 2016 was promoted to Truckee Fire Chief. And whereas under Bill Celine's leadership, the community has benefited from the partnerships forged between the Truckee Fire Protection District and the other districts, the counties, and the town of Truckee. And whereas some of the benefits include the Truckee Fire Protection District's partnership with the town on the biomass scoping study, and whereas he helped the town develop the short-term rental fire inspection program to ensure that over 1,255 properties have adequate defensible space and are set up in a way to deter fires from vacationers. And whereas Chief Celine was instrumental in bringing the opportunity of a ballot measure, Measure T, to the Truckee Fire Board and saw it through to adoption, helping our community create defensible space and reducing fire fuels. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Mayor of the town of Truckee, hereby thanks Chief Celine for dedicated service as a firefighter, paramedic, and leader, wishing him the best in all his future endeavors. Chief, thank you so much for your service to our community.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. Thank you, Council.
And Chief, I'd invite you to say a few words if you would like to.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council. I appreciate it, and town staff, of course, my board and staff as well, and our close partners, the Truckee Police Department. I can't tell you how much I appreciated the relationships and the collaboration that we've had with the town over the years, and I'm humbled and honored, and look forward to enjoyable next chapter. But it is bittersweet for sure. But anyway, thank you for the recognition.
Okay, and we are going to move on to our second proclamation this evening. So in just a moment, I'm going to invite someone to come up with me. This year, so every year we do a Pride Month proclamation for the month of June. And this year it'll be accepted by Margot, and I would invite you to join me at the podium, Margot. And I understand that Oak isn't quite here yet, but we will continue on and hope that Oak arrives shortly. So a little bit about Margot. Margot is a junior and will be next year's vice president of Truckee High Pride Club. Oak is also a junior and a stalwart member of the club. This is a really important proclamation for the town of Truckee, and it really supports our goals of greater inclusivity and connection with all of the unique members of our community. This year, staff, council members, and commissioners were offered Progress Pride pins to wear. They were also given out at Truckee Day. The Progress Pride flag was designed in 2018 by a graphic designer named Daniel Quasar. He added a 5-colored chevron to the classic rainbow flag to place a greater emphasis on inclusion and on progression. Our staff here at the town of Truckee have also had the opportunity to donate to the Trevor Project, which provides advocacy, education, and crisis support for LGBTQ young people. Lastly, our staff created a sign, which is available for all of our businesses to put in their windows to further promote welcoming, support, and celebration of all of our community members and visitors to Truckee. And those signs are available at the Welcome Center downtown. So with that, let's move on to our proclamation. Whereas lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer and questioning Pride Month is celebrated each year in the month of June to honor the 1969 Stonewall Uprising in Manhattan. And whereas the purpose of Pride Month is to recognize the impact that lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender individuals have had on history, locally, nationally, and internationally. Whereas this year marks the 52nd anniversary of the annual LGBTQ Pride traditions. So from our separate homes, we stand together with the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer town of Truckee as they declare their pride in who they are and who they love. And whereas, while there has been remarkable progress towards acceptance and equality in recent years, members of the LGBTQ community in the United States and around the world still face an unacceptable level of discrimination and violence. Whereas we must protect and safeguard the LGBTQ community in order to continue progress. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the mayor of the town of Truckee that in the month of June 2022, Truckee's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning celebrate Pride Month and encourages all community residents to embrace tolerance wherever possible and to celebrate our great diversity with our LGBTQ friends and neighbors. Margot, thank you so much for everything that you do. This is for you. Take a quick picture and I'll ask you to say a few words if you'd like.
Of course.
Okay. Okay, and here you go. The mic is yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is Margot Breton. I'm the VP of the Pride Club at Truckee High, as the mayor just said. I would like to thank the mayor and the town council for honoring us with this proclamation. This is a great step forward for inclusivity and progress with our community. We're taking great strides to make the community more accepted and loved, and I just wanted to thank everyone. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, we are done with our proclamations, so I'm just going to head back over there. We will continue on with 5.3.
Great, thank you. We have some new employees to announce this year, or tonight, I'm sorry, as well as some promotions that have happened this year in the last several months. So I think we'll start with Chief Renfro.
Yes,
Take it away.
I'm happy to introduce 2 new employees with the police department and 1 promotion. We'll start with Janae. Janae, if you can stand up, please. She's our newest animal caretaker, Janae McGee. Janae moved to Truckee in 1999 and currently lives in the Soda Springs area. She enjoys being around animals and deeply cares for their well-being. She's also thrilled to be a part of the Animal Services Division. At home, she has a Rottweiler named Bjorn and a 16-year-old Chihuahua. Janae is particularly busy at this time of year as she races vintage dirt bikes from April to October, and her current ride is a 1971 BSA B50, an English motorcycle that features controls on the opposite side as American-made motorcycles. She also enjoys drawing and painting in her free time. Please help me in welcoming Janae to Animal Services. Next up, we have Officer Jason Canham, who is our newest recruit to the patrol division. Jason was inspired by his father, a former CHP officer, to pursue a career in law enforcement. He is a highly motivated individual who enjoys the daily variety of police work and the opportunity to help those in his community. Jason acknowledges how lucky he is to work in Truckee. The location is beautiful, and he appreciates the incredible outpouring of support from the Truckee community for the first responders. So far, he's enjoyed the environment where he can build relationships with other officers and feel a sense of family in our department. Welcome, Jason. We're glad to have you on the team. And last and certainly not least, Andrew Holbrook. I'm excited to announce the promotion of Andrew Holbrook to Patrol Sergeant. Andrew has worked for the Truckee Police Department for the last 17 years, leading various teams and acting as a mentor in his previous role as a school resource officer. Andrew realized he would become a police officer at a young age. He recalled a time when he visited Knott's Berry Farm at 6 years old and kicked the shins of an actor playing a train robber at the park. He knew that was who he was to stop bad guys. Though Andrew's career in law enforcement has certainly been extensive, this is far from the only thing that defines him. Andrew is a father of 4 kids who are with us today. Morgan, Autumn, Luke, and Daniel, who recently joined the Nevada National Guard. Andrew enjoys riding his motorcycle through the windy mountain roads with his wife, Melissa. One thing that may not be apparent on the surface of Andrew is Andrew's love for gardening and landscaping. He notes the fulfillment that comes with watching what he has planted to grow and thrive. So please help me in congratulating Andrew Holbrook on his promotion to sergeant.
Great, thank you, Chief. Ms. Casey, would you like to introduce your new staff and promotions?
I would. Chris, if you could stand up for me. We are super excited to announce that we have hired a Chief Information Security and Technology Officer. Chris comes to us from the city of Roseville, where he worked in the police department, handling all of their IT needs for over 7 years. So we're very excited to have that partnership and that expertise for our police department to keep them up and running. After that, he worked in their finance department, so he has a very well-rounded IT expertise in the government realm. He also he helped create a program at the city of Roseville that helped teens get into tech, which is very cool, and we're hoping that he might be interested in putting on a similar program here in the Truckee Tahoe area. And next week, he is actually going to a very prestigious program put on by the Cal Guard, and they're going to be doing cybersecurity exercises with the actual Army and enlisted people. So he'll be working with the nation's best and learning all about cybersecurity and hopefully bringing some of that knowledge back to us. And while he's there, he's going to be representing the town of Truckee. So we're very excited to have that representation. So thank you so much, Chris. We're so excited to have you on board. And next up, we want to announce the promotion of Logan McDonald. This is actually very delayed because he was promoted several months ago. And I apologize that we haven't gotten here sooner. Logan actually came on board with the town in March of 2020. So he's basically been operating in emergency conditions since he started. And Logan literally never gets ruffled, no matter how intense or stressful the situation is. He remains calm and positive and solutions focused, and we're just so glad to have him on the team. During the cyber event, we started the process of entangling all of our data, and based on our initial tests, it would have taken us several weeks to get through everything. Logan saw this problem as an opportunity and created some super powerful virtual servers within our virtual environment and got the data out within a few days instead of a few weeks. And he came up with that all on his own. And then most recently, last week, we had a hardware failure. And when we figured out what the issue was, we called a market expert, and the market expert was like, "Oh, you guys not looking good." Logan wouldn't take that answer. He went back into the server room and he figured out how to get us up and running within a couple of hours. So we're just so excited to see where Logan's able to take our systems, and we're so happy to have him on board with us.
And Hillary, you're next.
Great. Lynn, can you stand up? I am thrilled to announce the promotion of Lynn Baumgardner to our Administrative Analyst 2 for the housing program. Lynn has lived in the Tahoe Truckee area for a dozen years and has been with the town since October 2020, previously in the Clerks and Communications Department, including supporting our housing programs behind the scenes. So she's not new to our housing programs, but is stepping into a new role. She earned her Master's of Environmental Science and Management from the Bren School at UC Santa Barbara, and she has a background that includes research, analysis, communications, training, and program development. So a broad skill set that we're excited to apply to our housing programs. Lynn's passionate about both housing and environmental stewardship, and when not working, she can often be found mountain biking, snowboarding, swimming, reading, or playing with her very cute dog, Bixby.
Great, thank you, everybody, and welcome to the team. We have one more promotion, and that is Ben Tollin. Ben's not with us tonight, but many of you may know him. Ben is currently one of our building inspectors. He's transitioning to a combined role of building inspector plans examiners. We're getting him set up with that. Ben has been with the town for over 5 years. He's one of our quietest employees, but he shows up every day, and he's one of our most reliable. And he's been persevering through our challenges in the building department, is excited to see us progressing forward on that front. So congratulations, Ben.
Okay, and in just a moment, we're going to move to 5.4, but I understand that Oak may have joined us. Thank you for being here tonight. I know we already did the proclamation, but I'd love to invite you up to the podium if there's anything that you would like to say, and I just want to thank you for all of your efforts to promote inclusivity and diversity in our community. Yep, right up to the podium, and just make sure that little red light is on.
You can just push the button. There you go.
Hi, my name's Oak. I was late because there's a lot of traffic. It took me 45 minutes to go 4 miles, which was a long time. I use they, them pronouns. I identify as non-binary and queer. So when I first went to Truckee High, I joined the Pride Club with Margot here. And I guess there I kind of made this community where I felt really comfortable and safe. And I think that's why it's really cool to see the town doing things and like stuff like this that's working to make our entire town that kind of safe place. Because, I mean, this is like my home. I've lived here 12 years. I grew up here. I probably went to school with some of your guys' kids. And just to be somewhere where like I feel like I'm accepted no matter, you know, what gender I think I am or my sexuality. It's just, I don't know, it's more comfortable to know that people support you. That's all. Thank you.
And we do support you, and we're so happy that you've joined us this evening. Both of you, thank you again for all your work. Okay, with that, we're going to move on to 5.4, and I'm going to turn it back over to our town manager, Jen Calloway.
Great, thank you. This is one of the more exciting parts of my job, where every quarter we bring forward our employee incentive awards. And these awards are based on our town values, and department heads nominate employees for these awards based on work that they've completed during the last quarter. We handed these out during our last all-employee meeting, but we feel it's important to share these awards with the council and the community so you can get a better sense of the employees that are working on your behalf. So our first recipient is a little different, but we have a new doctor on staff here at Town Hall, and that is Heather Benson. Heather Benson graduated on May 13th, completing her PhD in Human Cultural Geography from the University of Nevada, Reno. Her dissertation, In Place, Out of Place, Punjabi Sikhs in Reno, Nevada, focuses on the geographies of inclusion, exclusion for migrants and transnationals in the American West, with a specific focus on Sikhs. This is an awesome achievement that took Heather 6 years, plus a master's and a BA, and many words and drafts in the making. She's done a great job balancing this task as well as starting her new job in the planning division. So congratulations to Dr. Benson. And we provided this incentive award based on her commitment to excellence. Our next incentive recipients were actually our entire building division, and that would be Mike Ross, Sarah Owens, Brittany Harold, Denara Tomasella, Pasito Ravi, Dan West, and Ben Tollin for their display of teamwork and excellence. The strong commitment of teamwork means staying focused on the goal even when there are challenges. It means working together from a place of trust, commitment, and accountability to achieve success. But how do you create strong teamwork when most of your team is new and the workload is overwhelming? The building division staff recognized the opportunity that newness creates and started from a fresh perspective. They looked to their individual and group strengths to modify the internal approach to the building permit process, as well as their outward communication. They took risks, they problem solved on the fly, and they embraced a positive attitude when the building community was understandably losing patience given the long delays. Their ability to adapt significantly reduced the number of permits in the queue, with the most recent push decreasing the queue by a total of 38% and decreasing the number of single-family permits awaiting processing by 80%. This wouldn't have been possible without everyone's collective efforts, so we thank the building division for their progress and their commitment to teamwork. Next, we honored Ryan Ruano. Ryan is one of our newest officers, and on February 21st, Officer Ruano was dispatched to a report of an elderly disabled male subject living in a vehicle that recently broke down. Officer Ruano went above and beyond, coordinating with a local auto shop whose staff agreed to fix the car for free. In the meantime, Officer Ruano used excellent communication skills to gain the cooperation of the subject, convincing him to stay at the warming shelter for the next few days while the vehicle was being repaired. The subject was then able to retrieve his repaired vehicle and continue his journey safely. Officer Ruano, the town, and our department, the PD department, thanks him for his compassion and dedication to those in need and for going above and beyond to resolve the issue. We next had our community service officer, Katie Flaherty. Katie responded to a report on February 14th of a deceased cat inside a cat crate in the middle of the Truckee River. CSO Flaherty immediately recognized the potential for serious criminal activity and initiated an animal abuse investigation. After locating the owners, CSO Flaherty conducted several in-person interviews documenting their conflicting statements against a medical examination of the deceased cat. Throughout her investigation, CSO Flaherty noted her every action in an impressively detailed report, just like that of a seasoned investigator. With her hard work and tenacious investigative skills and attention to detail, they were able to resolve the case, and it was an example for the rest of the department to follow. And then lastly, we recognized two of our officers, Connor Vickers and Robert Yarbo. Recently, there's been a series of overnight thefts in the Glenshire neighborhood from unlocked vehicles, and thousands of dollars in valuables had been stolen. On the evening of April 18th, Officer Vickers located two individuals who were dressed in all dark clothing and acting suspiciously in the Old Gateway neighborhood. Officer Vickers surveilled the subjects for several minutes, observing them walking in between unoccupied vehicles within a nearby parking lot, and eventually he detained both suspects, locating evidence on their person that linked one of the suspects to the Glenshire thefts. Officer Vickers also obtained information on scene regarding the possible location of where some of the other stolen property was being stored. In the days that followed, Officer Yarborough coordinated that effort to obtain and serve a search warrant at the residence in the Riverview Home subdivision. This resulted in the discovery of numerous items of stolen property and the positive identification of a second involved suspect. Officer Yarborough then took the investigation a step further by securing 2 arrest warrants for both the individuals involved in the string of thefts. Both officers' efforts during this investigation were directly responsible for the positive outcome. As a result, the stolen property was returned to the rightful owners, and the 2 suspects involved were identified and are being held responsible for the actions. This was an excellent example of teamwork, and it represents what the police department stands for. So those were all our recipients this quarter. Some interesting stories that you learned in these, but we thank everybody for their commitment to our town values and their everyday work.
Thank you, Jen. And just to reiterate, a tremendous thanks to all of our town staff who are working incredibly hard, and particularly those, congratulations on your employee incentive awards. With that, we will move to 5.5, our peak season's summer messaging and programs. And I understand we have a few folks who may be presenting this evening. Erica Mertens, Alfred Knotts, and Bob Womack.
So I'm going to ask all of 3 to come up here, and we've got plenty of seats for you while we get this uploaded. And this is something we started last year to help the council and the community understand what actions the staff are taking to prepare for summer with traffic and high visitation.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about our critical... Thank you. I'm so used to working without a mic. I'm going to talk a little bit about our critical public communications this summer. These would be surrounding alert and warning specifically. And so, which mic do we have that's feeding back? So one of the things we did this year is we changed to the Code Red notification platform. We continue to push this out everywhere that we possibly can to get people to understand that it's opt-in. So even if they were on Nixle, they need to switch to Code Red. We talk a little bit about why we made this switch. One of the biggest is to have the redundancy with the county. That way that allows them to notify our citizens just as we can notify theirs. So both sides of the county now are on the same system. It also allows us to much more target alerts to the address level. And as we were seeing in evacuations everywhere, overreach can still be a problem. We will evacuate. We will put notifications out there, but we want to try and make it so that we're using those at a level that makes sense rather than just broadcasting across the whole town. It will also allow us for some additional platforms as they come online, particularly one of them is with the National Weather Service, which we partner with for a lot of stuff that we do. Signing up is very easy. You can go to our homepage, anywhere you see that kind of register for Code Red button, click on that, and if you have never registered before, it'll take you through the process. I realize that the app is separate from actually registering. So when you register for the app, it simply is an app that runs on your phone. You have to have location up on it for it to work. But the nice thing about the app is it'll work anywhere in the US. So if you walk into another area that's Code Red, you're going to get notifications there. If you're still having trouble, contact 211 through Connecting Point. They work through are paid through the county to be able to work people through the registration process. And if somebody was already logged on, had their account, they may end up calling Code Red if they've forgotten everything about it, and Code Red will help them. Really no different than any other technology that's out there. Just real quick, I often get asked, how are you going to notify me? Well, there's the kind of 15 different ways. Rather than walking through all those, you see a lot of those have to do with code red. That's one of the nice things, is it allows us to touch a lot of things at once. Social media, our AM 1670 radio, which will stay up during power outages, and is another way for information. CMS signboards, partner notification systems. This is huge. We have, we work with the schools, PUD, and other partners to put out messaging that way. And then just, you notice I have it in red there, the high-low siren. Just kind of want to touch on this, and I'll touch on it in a second again, but if you're waiting to hear that siren, you've waited too long. I mean, I can't really stress that enough. That is the last of anything that we're going to do. And we can't guarantee that we're going to even be able to do that. So for anybody that thinks, well, I'm going to wait till I hear the sirens in my neighborhood, we've waited too long. A couple of key takeaways. Really, it's, stay aware. Situational awareness, what we do in briefings. But know the weather. That's the time when we're really the most concerned, is when it's windy, dry, thunderstorm days. Those are the things. Always have a plan. And then, as I said, be ready and leave early. The research that we're seeing, which has continued to be everything we've seen for the last 4 or 5 years, is that unfortunately people really did have time in fires to leave, and they perished because they waited and they got stuck. That's not true in every case, but it's true in the majority of them. And then the other part that some of the research is showing now, people rarely perish on main roads. Once you get to a main road, those are the roads we're able to do good defensible space work on and provide plenty of protection and support to. So the other thing I'll say, started talking about this a little bit earlier today, really kind of want to push this message. Being prepared is not about living in fear. We don't have to live in fear of things that are going to happen here. It's nowhere different than anywhere else. There's hurricanes, there's earthquakes. We all have these different things where we live, but we need to be prepared. We need to be ready if something goes wrong. So that's mine.
Our slides are all together.
Oh, they are all together. Okay. Sorry. I goofed up a little here. And start from this slide. There we go.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, can everyone hear me all right? Great, so I'm gonna talk about our Keep Truckee Green summer initiatives. And the first one, if you go to the next slide, please, is our Trailhead Ambassador Program. This year, we are partnering with Truckee Trails as well as Visit Truckee Tahoe. And between the three of us, we will have Trailhead ambassadors out. So last summer, you'll recall, we had 2 interns who we hired to be our Trailhead ambassadors. And this summer, Truckee Trails will be taking the lead on that through funding with the other partners as well. And then in addition, next slide, we will have 2 free bike valets, which will be hosted by those Truckee Trail ambassadors. And the first is at Truckee Thursdays. That's taking place in the Pocket Park. If you came last year, you may have seen that. It was tremendously successful. That's going to be available at every single Truckee Thursday, and that is located at the corner of Bridge and Jaboom Street, right across from Alibi and the post office. And then additionally, the Truckee Trails Foundation will also be hosting a bike valet at Music in the Park on Wednesday evenings at the regional park near the tennis courts. So both really great ways to kind of alleviate the hassle of parking, but also encourage folks to ride their bikes and further reduce their GHG emissions. And then lastly, we've got several ongoing litter abatement initiatives. The first is Clean Tahoe is back again this summer. That is the nonprofit that we hired last year. They're back again this year, and their focus is really on doing weekly litter sweeps through downtown and Donner Lake areas, as well as other kind of hotbed areas that we receive remarks about. So you can submit a comment on Request Truckee, and those also get forwarded along to our partners at Clean Tahoe. And then additionally, we have increased our downtown garbage service. So the public litter containers, those are at max service capacity right now from TTSD. We are also doing some innovative garbage can renovations. So thank you to our facilities team for kind of renovating some of the existing compactors, and also I've heard we have a very special trash can that will accommodate pizza boxes. So that will hopefully alleviate the trash cans downtown from getting jammed up. And then we have two kind of ongoing volunteer programs. The first is the Grab a Bag program, and I'll talk about that a little bit more on the next slide. And then our monthly Truckee Litter Corps, which is the first Saturday of every month, rotating locations. And then last slide. I won't say them all, but these are all of our current participating businesses in the Grab a Bag program. You can stop by any of these locations and ask for a bag. Do your own litter pickup anytime. It doesn't have to be part of our organized days, and then exchange that for a prize or a discount. So those are the programs we've got going on, and I'll pass it off to Alfred.
Thank you. We're going to walk through some programs here. It's a little risky putting the three of us together and telling us we only have a little bit of time, so I'll try to be quick. And so next slide, please. So there's a lot of things coming back here. I kind of wish Kelly would have retired before COVID, then I could have started during COVID, but that's not the case here. So we are reinitiating our summer night service, so that's very exciting. Last winter when we did, I did come on board in the fall time, we had a hard time providing drivers and levels of service that we could be consistent. So we've overcome that kind of barrier, but also just kind of tag teaming here with the TART Connect service on the North Shore as well, and making sure that we have our night service you can make seamless, not seamless, but make transitions to the North Shore and vice versa through the resort base area. So that's the night service that's coming back, and that's starting June 30th, and that will run through September 5th. Next slide, please. What else is also back? So summer event shuttles are back. So 4th of July shuttles, we'll be running those consistent with years past, and not trying to upset the apple cart here with our services and what people have grown accustomed to, trying to build off of our existing services that people have responded to. So those services will operate through our existing kind of neighborhood routes. And that'll operate from about 8 a.m. to approximately 1:45 p.m. depending on those neighborhoods. We're working with the TMA to make sure we get all the information out, which is the Transportation Management Association, do all of our marketing, outreach materials. We've been working over the last couple of weeks and months even to make sure we have all the new drop and load zones all delineated, route restructuring for inter-service or inter-regional bus service that comes in through the depot, and transition that all out. But that'll also occur during our Truckee Thursday shuttles as well, which are also occurring as previously operated as well. So we will be ramping that back up. So as people move them coming out, we move to come out and move them as well. So that'll operate around, again, approximately, depending on the neighborhood, that's why it's approximate, 4:30 to approximately 9:30. Next slide. What we've also been working towards, kind of building, again, off the program in terms of just mobility and transportation, is the micro transit pilot program, which I'm sure everybody is well versed in and appreciate all the support getting us to this point. So that'll be a fare-free app-based system, operate in one zone. So we have been able to break down those zones so the trips can occur within the whole service area. It'll operate between June 25th, September 5th, and we will be having a ribbon cutting June 23rd, and that'll occur essentially the parking lot behind the Beacon gas station down there, and it'll dovetail off of the first Truckee Thursday. So that's the idea, but also to kind of remove a little bit from the chaos. That'll operate from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. So very, very excited about that. The vehicles have been delivered, so we are on schedule for everything for that. Also, a lot of marketing, working with Braun on press releases and social media kits, and getting that all ramped up and getting out the door also. So be giving a presentation to some HOA folks next week as well. So word is getting out, and the service will commence on the 25th. Next slide. So all those are coming. They're coming back in. The update in this is that this is delayed. So not to end on a bad note, but to end on a forthright note, the e-bike program will be delayed. We are. It's a little different with our contractual obligations because we don't have one. So that limits our leverage a little bit. We have run into really, I met with the executive director last week and ran into, honestly, some supply chain issues that will delay the delivery of the bike. So we wanted to be forthright and kind of manage those expectations in the community, making sure that we are, with that bottom bullet there is kind of maintaining the momentum, because there has been a lot of momentum and excitement in the community. We don't want that to wane, but we also want to make sure that people have the most and best available information. And I am awaiting a new schedule on that. But again, this is a kind of a different kind of contractual obligation or lack thereof with the vendor, and then being able to kind of get things on the ground within the next couple of months. But we're honestly probably looking to the spring period, depending on the time we want to roll out. We want to make sure that we're not rolling this out in fall and then pulling the plug back out. We're having to deal with maintenance issues through the winter also, so we want to make sure that we're very strategic and comprehensive, which has been our approach throughout the whole time, to make sure that we launch the program comprehensively. So, and that was the end of my presentation.
Okay. You guys ran through that pretty fast. That was a lot.
We're getting stern warnings.
Well, thank you so much. There may be questions, but I'm going to get us through 5.6 and 5.7, and then if there are any questions at all, we'll just have you guys back up. But thank you for all the hard work and the updates and the transparency on where some of our things are. I really appreciate that. Okay, with that, let's move into 5.6, which is our class and comp study update. And Bonnie is going to give that presentation today.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members. It is my pleasure to give you a brief update on where we are in our classification and compensation study. So for any members of the public who are checking in for the first time on this process, a really brief overview is that a comp and class study is a way for a public agency to check in to make sure that they have people working in the correct jobs to accurately serve their population and make sure our government's functioning well. And on top of that, it's a way for us to check to make sure we are paying salary and benefits in a way that makes us not comparable, that's not the word I'm looking for, competitive in the job market so that we can attract and retain excellent employees. So where are we in this process? So right now, we have essentially wrapped up the classification part of this study. So we have new job descriptions for every employee currently here at the town. And during that process, our employees had the opportunity to provide feedback to Coffin Associates, who has been performing this study for us, to let them know what kind of things they do what the work they do here at the town. And after COFT crafted those new job descriptions, employees once again had the opportunity to review that and provide comments and suggested changes on those job descriptions to make sure it accurately represented the work that they do here at the town. And we want to thank all of the employees for, all of the time they spent checking in at that point and making sure we had a really robust process. And then also thanking Coffin Associates for taking the time to respond to employee concerns and really listening to employees explain the work they do here at the town. So we're thankful for everyone, the full participation in this project. So as part of those new job descriptions, we did things like standardized language. So an example is up here on this screen that recognizes the council and the town of Truckee's commitment to diversity and inclusion. So we have some new language in all of our job descriptions to account for that. We also updated things like legal requirements for the Americans with Disabilities Act to make sure we're accurately reflecting all of the physical requirements needed to do the job. So we're up to date on all of those job descriptions, which is wonderful. And through that process, in consultation with department heads and division managers and the council, we did create some new job descriptions. So these might be for positions that we had an immediate need for, like a custodian, or ones like the division equity and inclusivity position that council expressed a desire for. And then there were also some divisions that said, hey, in the future, as we grow and we evolve, we might need these other positions in the chain of command. And so we've also created new job descriptions. So when we get to that point, they may be vacant right now, but we have the opportunity to grow and change as well, based on the needs that each department saw. And then also as part of that process, we had some employees who, when they filled out their questionnaire, COF recommended that they were actually working outside of their current job description. So they had providing services in excess of what their current job description entailed. And so based on COF's recommendation, we do have a small handful of employees who we will recommend being reclassified at the end of the study. So that's the classification portion of this. And then we have the compensation side of this. And this one's still in process. And we're deep in the thick of it. So right now, we worked with the 2 employees from each of our employee working groups to come up with a list of 12 comparator agencies. And these are the other public agencies we're comparing ourselves to. And we actually ended up with 7 new agencies. And we brought this list to council to get your go-ahead as well to use them. And these 7 agencies reflect really the changes in the market, and that Truckee is a different place than it was in 2013 when we did our last full compensation and classification study. So these 7 new agencies help us better reflect what it's like to actually live and work in Truckee, where it's very hard to buy a house to live here and afford to live here. Also making sure that we have agencies that, accurately reflect the scope of the populations we serve with fluctuating tourist populations. And also agencies that are of similar size and provide similar services and have some kind of similar cost of living. So we have 7 new agencies. We've changed who we're comparing ourselves to, and we're hoping this will provide robust comparator agencies to make us competitive, to ensure we're competitive. So what has COF done at this point? They took 60% of all of our job classifications and surveyed those against those comparator agencies. And they collected data on both salaries and then the total compensation package. So they're also looking at the actual nature of the job. So titles might be different at different agencies, but is the scope of the job similar to what the employee does here at the town? So they collected that data and provided it to us, and staff is currently completing a quality control review on this data before we give COF the go-ahead to proceed with the next steps. So what are those remaining next steps? Well, COF, once we give COF the go-ahead, they'll create a wage matrix for each of our positions. So this is kind of the Tetris portion of it, where they're looking at where, based on market data, where do each of these positions fall in this matrix? So we will see changes from our current wage matrix. So where does the market say an engineering manager should be? And those will kind of all get pieced together. And that's one way
Just to add a little clarity to that, it's where the engineering manager will be in relation to the other positions in our agency. So not necessarily where they fall based on the compensation portion, but just where they fall in relation to the town manager and, the engineering tech. So that's kind of what they're focusing on in creating this new wage matrix. And then as we say here in this slide, we will work on getting to that market compensation piece with negotiations that council will help us kind of work through.
Thank you, Nikki. And then once COF has kind of put together that initial wage matrix, then we have further discussions about the internal alignment in our organization. So does what COF has prepared make sense from the structure of our organization? Because we know it better than COF does, but using their experts and their guidance to have that further discussion. And then we would have a final wage matrix. So at that point, COF and Associates will present a final report to council. And based on your direction, we would potentially open up negotiations with the employee groups over the implementation of those results. So that's an opportunity to talk with all 3 of our employee groups about what cost results are and what the wage matrix looks like and what that might look like. And, based on the original, when we came to council at the very beginning when we awarded the contract, we once again kind of reiterated with you guys to ensure that, our goals, the goals of the study were to compensate and attract and retain excellent employees, to reward excellent performance, maintain relative parity among our bargaining groups, and to ensure the long-term fiscal health and viability of the organization. And then after talking with the employee groups and closing those negotiations, we'd bring an implementation plan back to council with a new wage matrix as well. And that's all I have.
Okay.
You make it sound so easy.
No, I was just going to say, this has been it's a long process and it's complicated. So thank you, Bonnie, so much for the really comprehensive update. Let's move to 5.7, Jen, your town manager report, and then we'll see if anyone has questions.
Great, thank you. I do have several announcements. First, I want to start off by thanking all of our volunteers, our staff, and our community partners that worked Truckee Day. It was a great success. It was so wonderful to see people out in person and reconnecting and having the community event following that. 4.3 tons of litter was collected on that day with 900 volunteers and serving 500 volunteer barbecue lunches. So thank you to everybody for your participation in that and to staff as well. Also wanted to say welcome back, Erica. It's good to have you back. Bob mentioned Code Red in Zone Haven. The team will be at the next Golden Meet and Greet event this Thursday at 10 o'clock to help people sign up. So if you know anybody that's interested in struggling with that, I encourage them to attend the Golden Meet and Greet. We have our next free green waste drop-off event at the Truckee Rodeo Grounds. That's Friday the 17th from 8 to 2 p.m. There's information available on our website as to what can be dropped off and the regulations and rules around that. Truckee Police Department's Bike Rodeo, that's also taking place this week on Saturday at Regional Park. It's a free event. It's recommended for kids between 4 and 10. It's from 10 to 3 p.m. There's going to be a helmet giveaway. There's an obstacle course. I think there's a couple bikes that will get raffled off. So if you know anybody with children 4 to 10, encourage them to come and participate in that fun event. Let's see, June 23rd, we have our ribbon cutting for our microtransit. We have the first Truckee Thursday, and you have an opportunity to bike with Mayor Henderson. The Truckee Chamber of Commerce is hosting the event of Biking with the Mayor. You are encouraged to come. It's an intermediate level single track ride, fairly non-technical, I'm told.
That's correct.
Flowy trails, moderate physical pace. So meet at 5 p.m. There's specific details on the trailhead and what to bring on the Chamber's Facebook page. So if you're interested in attending that. Also want to remind everybody the fire ban is in effect. It started on June 1st. It includes all residential campfires, bonfires that burn anything other than gas. You can find information on that on our Truckee Fire website as well. Can't leave without mentioning the general plan. We've got a number of meetings coming up this summer. Our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, and that is our GPAC discussion of the draft plan. So please tune in for that. And lastly, and probably no surprise, we're still hiring. So anybody that is interested in working with our incredible town family, looking for a space to be creative and you're super smart, professional, and kind, then we encourage you to check out our website. There's some positions posted currently, and we have lots of new positions that will be posted very soon. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Jen. That was wonderful. So with that, I'll open it up to any of my fellow council members have questions on any of the items for presentations this evening. No? Okay. I'll open up public comment. If anyone would like to make a public comment on any of the items, you can step up to the podium.
I missed the opportunity for public comment on the front end. I assume that I'll just come to the next meeting unless we make an exception.
Putting me on the spot. Let's keep it to public comment for the presentations for right now. Okay, so. Let me turn it over to Jen.
It's at your discretion, Mayor, if you want to read
Okay. Mr. Tollin, why don't you approach the podium, and you have 3 minutes, as you know.
Burning my 3 minutes already. I'm burning my 3 minutes already.
I don't think they've started yet. You're okay.
That's all right. I'll try to keep it even shorter because you made an exception. My name's Jan Holland, Truckee River Legacy Foundation President, and Mayor Henderson and honorable council members. The Truckee River Legacy Foundation mission is to restore, preserve, and provide access to the Truckee River for our community and future generations. Our mission is aligned with one of the goals of the 2040 General Plan, which we are going to be discussing on Thursday as a GPAC, to make the Truckee River a focal point and aligning zoning with the downtown river revitalization strategy. We generally support the draft land use element for the West River focus area as approved by the Town Council in November. And we also understand why our suggestions for East River Street were essentially ignored. And, you know, the land use element revisions only considered 5 areas in town, comprising of a small portion of town. It was essentially off the menu, and at the moment I'm going off script. But basically, we are preparing a letter to Town Council, which will be coming before you meet with Planning Commission, to advocate for really looking at this East River area. This is the one opportunity to do that, to rezone this area so that it's more aligned with the river revitalization strategy. The one issue that I have heard is, well, that would essentially be a down zone, because currently all of the area that we've identified is zoned high density housing at 24 units to the acre, which in our experience on West River Street, with the co-housing group has is practically undevelopable given the current California laws. And so I guess the point is we should be looking at making it mixed use, making it more appropriate for housing, mixed use housing development, make it more appropriate for potentially bike shops, cafes, things that we can use as a community to access the Truckee River and not have it container farms and things like that. So more to be continued, and thank you very much, Mayor, for making this allocation.
Thank you, Mr. Holland. Would anyone else like to make a public comment? Okay, seeing none, I will close public comment. And we are going to move on to consent calendar. So we have several items this evening. Bear with me as I read them all. 6.1 are minutes of May 10th, 2022. 6.2, calling for the municipal election and consolidation with the statewide general election. 6.3, biannual conflict of interest code. 6.4, amendment to the GAN appropriations limit for fiscal year 2022 to 2023. 6.5, update existing housing program leased to locals, the workforce rental grant program. 6.6, approval of road repair and accountability act local streets and roads funding for the West River Street streetscape improvement project. 6.7, 2022 seal coat project C2005 and C2104 contract award. 6.8, fiscal year 22-23 request of Transportation Development Act funds from the Nevada County Transportation Commission. 6.9, adoption of resolutions levying special taxes for Town of Truckee Community Facilities Districts and Landscaping and Lighting Districts. Resolution 2022-22 for CFD 2013-1, Brickletown Maintenance District. Resolution 2022-23 for CFD 2017-2, Rail Yard Transit and Maintenance District. Resolution 2022-24 for LLD1 Envision DPR Landscaping and Lighting Assessment District. Resolution 2022-25 for CFD 2015-1 Georgia Ranch Trail Maintenance and Transit District, and Resolution 2022-26 for CFD 2019-1 Coldstream Transit and Trail Maintenance District. Item 6.10. Authorization to submit revised Transportation Development Act claim form, approval of Resolution 2022-39, revising fiscal year 2021-22 Transportation Development Act claim, and fiscal year 2021-22 budget amendment. Item 6.11, purchasing authority and contract amendment with ePlus Technologies for CISTO services. And that is it for our consent items this evening. Do I have any of my fellow council members who would like to pull a consent item tonight? No, seeing none. Anyone from staff who would like to pull a consent item tonight?
No, Mayor.
Okay. And we no longer have anyone from the public with us. So no one to pull an additional consent item. So with that, may I have a motion to approve items 6.1 through 6.11 this evening?
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, consent calendar passes unanimously. With that, we will move on to our first discussion item of the evening, 7.1, our public hearing for the adoption of residential and commercial solid waste services rates. And as always, we will start with a presentation. Erica, I believe you're going to kick us off for this one.
That's right. Thank you, Mayor and council members. It's nice to see everyone. And I will just say kudos to Melanie Conti, who prepared the majority of the staff reports that you read accompanying these items this evening. And a big thanks to her for stepping in while I was out on family leave. All right. So this evening, I'm just going to jump in and run through a summary of the programs. So just as a reminder, for residential programs, we have weekly trash service. There is no can averaging, which means that residents can have one can serviced per week. Any additional cans are $6.20 moving forward. But I do want to highlight the option that there is a 2-can service possibility. And I believe that's $17.45 per month for an additional can. So that would be that price for one additional can each week on a monthly rate. If customers are interested in that, they should contact TTSD, our waste hauler. A reminder of what constitutes of an overage. Trash should not be placed overflowing on the cans. There should be nothing outside of the cans. All of these items would constitute as an overage. So important to note that if a resident is still utilizing blue bags, that those are secured and placed next to the can. Residents are also entitled to 3 extra cans per overage. 4 scheduled overages, and each overage is 3 extra cans. So 4 times a year, you can go online onto your online account at waste101.com and schedule that overage. Additionally, residents can schedule a bulky item pickup. So that's things like a couch or a refrigerator. And those can be scheduled by calling TTSD at 583-7800. And that is 2 times per year for free. And then additionally, as I mentioned already, the waste101.com has a customer portal where residents can do paperless billing, so paying for services, scheduling those overages, and then also signing up for the online notifications. And this is really helpful to receive those kind of more real-time email notifications. TTSD is bills any extra services, any ancillary services go through quarterly through TTSD. But if you want a more real look at your account, these email notifications are sent within the week. For recycling, we've got the blue carts. Again, these are serviced every other week in alternating weeks with the green waste carts. Blue bags continue to be serviced, and those, again, should be placed next to the trash can. In the summer months, we have an additional recycling bin drop-off here at Town Hall next to our cardboard dumpster. And if you still need a cart, you can do so by calling TTSD. Again, that's 530-583-7800. We have 2 more cart pickup days this summer coming up, so those can be picked up for free if residents want either a blue or a green waste cart. Some fun stats for you. We've got 11,400 and some odd yard waste carts being used in the community, and 6,600 recycling carts as well. So a large portion of our community has opted into utilizing these carts, which is helping to keep our materials cleaner as well as reducing the number of plastic bags being disposed of. So green waste residents can have up to 3 green waste carts for free. These are serviced May through November. So just as a reminder, the last service week is the week of November 14th through the 18th. The last couple of years, we heard feedback from residents in the early years of this program, and then the last couple of years, we've extended this a 7th month. So that's what that November date accommodates. Discounted dumpster rentals. Oh boy, there's a old number here saying 2019, so that's fun. But the price is correct, I can assure you of that. The rate for a weekly discounted dumpster rental is $89.16. And the way that works is TTSD drops off the dumpster to your driveway. It sits there for a week, and you can put all the pine needles until your heart's desire, and then it gets picked up 1 week later. It's a very effective and efficient way to dispose of your defensible space cleanups. Punch cards, again, these started a few years ago, but these are continuing on. Residents can obtain their card upon their first visit with a ID and a proof of Truckee residency, and then these are good for up to 6 yards of green waste drop-off for free at Eastern Regional Landfill. The nice thing about these cards is once you've got it, you don't have to show your ID again, so it keeps the line moving along, and they're also transferable. So if you have a really nice neighbor that wants to take your green waste in for you, or you have a contractor, these cards can be passed once you've obtained them. Community food waste drop-off. We're continuing on our partnership with the Slow Food, and we've got drop-offs at the farmers markets, the community garden, as well as here at Town Hall. And then new this year, or from the last year rather, an update is the Glenshire General Store and Ace Mountain Hardware on Donner Pass Road. It's important to note that this is for food scraps only, no other items such as paper, compostable plastics, and that type of thing. I believe the demonstration garden does accept newspaper. However, it's best to check our KeepTruckeeGreen website for all of the acceptable materials. In addition to the standard kind of programs that we have, the administrative fee helps to fund our many Keep Truckee Green efforts, such as our waste reduction. So this is a picture of the waste sorting tables that went into action this year at Glenshire Elementary School and are going to be in all of our Truckee Truckee schools. We recently concluded our single-use foodware reduction efforts. Yes, there is a certain council member's daughter in that picture, I believe. We'll be bringing those findings and proposed policy measures to council later this summer. But just as a reminder, we do have several restaurants on our Green Box program, which is our reusable to-go box program. So many other efforts other than just trash and recycling, but also waste reduction as well. Of course, our outreach efforts, we're heading into the summer season where we will be tabling at many events. And a shameless plug for Keep Truckee Green, if you're not already following us, we're on Instagram and Facebook. And then we also, of course, as I already mentioned earlier, we have our Truckee Litter Corps, which is a wonderful volunteer-led effort that meets monthly. All right, so to conclude, we have our solid waste rates here. What you're looking at is the monthly fee, which is $378.12, plus the administrative fee, which covers our programming. And this year, Tahoe Truckee Sierra Disposal, TTSD, was due to have a cost-based adjustment, and that is per our contract. However, because of a delay in receiving some of the documents, it was actually not possible for us to conduct this very lengthy and robust analysis. So we worked with our consultants, HF&H, who are experts in this field, and they helped us to do an index adjustment, and that's based on looking at different indices such as fuel, employment, and also the disposal costs. So with that, we are looking at an 8% increase. However, our franchise agreement actually caps an index-based year increase at 7%. So while still significant at a 7% increase, staff does recommend that we move forward with the 7% increase as proposed here. And that is because of the many increases such that we've mentioned from the index. So as we know, fuel costs have risen, as well as the disposal costs at the Eastern Regional Landfill have increased significantly as well, with both a 5% tip fee increase for general solid waste and then a more significant increase for the green waste. Okay, so commercial services, we've got the trash, recycling, green waste, food waste and cardboard. These are the different services that are offered to businesses. Each business has been kind of right-sized by our technical assistance staff. And depending on what the businesses subscribe to is what ultimately dictates their rates. However, some notable mentions is that the recycling is free. So any subscriber of garbage can receive an equivalent amount of recycling for free for all businesses. And then for food waste, the cost of that is 50% the cost of an equivalent garbage size, and cardboard is 10%. And so that is really to incentivize the behavior to place those items in the correct receptacles and reduce the the waste disposed of by businesses, as well as incentivizing them economically. Oops, sorry. One thing to note is the commercial rates remain flat this year. If you recall, last year, there was actually supposed to be a rate roll under per the indexes for commercial, or for the analysis for commercial rates. Council last year directed us to maintain the rates as flat so that in future years, such as this year, when the rate was actually going to go up by just over 3%, we were able to maintain that as a flat rate from this cost savings of last year. So this year, businesses will actually still remain the same. Okay, with that, staff recommends that council conduct a public hearing and approve residential and commercial solid waste schedules and adopt Resolution 2022-30, requesting the Nevada County Auditor to collect the residential fee on the Nevada County property tax roll.
Erica, thank you so much for the presentation. Let's move right into council questions. And I know I've said this before, but since we have a really full agenda tonight, I'm just going to sort of reiterate that we had a lot of questions in advance. Thank you so much for those. And our questions tonight are really those that could influence our policy decisions, really leaving that implementation up to staff and ensuring we're supporting and empowering that. So with that, let me start on this side of the dais. Councilmember Klövstad, do you have any questions?
My only question relates to the a couple of the comments that we received that mentioned some COVID relief that Truckee's sanitation district had received. Can you elaborate on that at all?
Yeah. Am I able to invite Kelly from TTSD to the podium? Wonderful. So Kelly Hare from Tahoe Truckee Sierra Disposal is actually here and is prepared to make some remarks on this. Thanks, Kelly.
Good evening, and thank you. As Erica introduced me, I'm Kelly Hare from Tahoe Truckee Sierra Disposal, and we did indeed apply for a Paycheck Protection Program loan. We were awarded it, and I think I actually saw some of the comments, that were presented to you and around the community, and I think there maybe has been a little bit of misinformation, but the point of the Paycheck Protection Program was to maintain paying employees. So we actually did have a one-day layoff prior to our receiving the loan. So it's interesting that we actually did have a layoff for one day. But we did receive the loan, and the terms of that loan required us to actually pay our employees and not do layoffs. And at the same time, we were trying to maintain our services as best as we could. I think some of you know TTSD and ERL are kind of a sister company, and we had a variety of impacts to both businesses. For the collection services in particular, we had a number of commercial customers who typically would be, on dumpster service. That, as you know, there's a big truck that goes around, picks up the dumpsters. Okay, that's, one employee, right? And instead, we had a real influx of people coming up here and staying in their second homes and creating more residential trash than we were used to picking up. And in the meanwhile, we had staff not only getting COVID, but also being exposed. And at that time, the rules were very specific, and we were following everything as we could. But it was interesting. At the time that we had more residential activity than usual, we actually had less bodies to be out there picking up the trash manually. So there were a lot of impacts on our business. We did get a paycheck protection loan. We did follow the terms and conditions of the loan, and it was eventually forgiven. We're not we weren't hiding anything. It was many businesses around the country, obviously, signed up for it. So, any other questions on that?
No, thank you very much, Kelly.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Councilmember Klofstad, any other questions broadly? No. Councilmember Zabriskie, any questions?
Yes, I have two. One is just a follow-up to Councilmember Klofstad's question. Was the forgiven loan, was that revenue included in the computation for determining the rate increase?
Good question. Actually, the computation for the rate increase was based solely on an index factor, which, to Erica's point, came in higher than our
Cap.
our cap. So we are capped at 7%. There's a number of factors that go into applying for the loan forgiveness, and one thing, we had so many costs that it was kind of just a very straightforward application, because our costs were just, pretty crazy, and we had so many wages that we kept going, even though we had people sick and out on quarantine, mandatory quarantines. So.
Okay, while you're still up there, another reason for opposition to the rate increase coming in the comments was concerning the quality of service. And I realized the rate increase is more closely tied to the cost of service rather than the quality of service. So I appreciate the distinction. On the other hand, complaints about the quality of service, this isn't the first time I think any of us have heard them. Mm-hmm. Could you just briefly indicate to us what your company's doing to try and reduce the basis for the complaints?
Yes. I actually really appreciate this question, because I feel like we do get a little blasted, and these complaints and concerns are not on deaf ears. And I think Erica and some of the staff understand that we really do try to improve. Specifically, what we've done over the past 2 years, we've added customer service agents to keep the phone wait times down. In the meanwhile, also adding a very experienced call center office manager. She has been with us for, I think, 13 months. And in expanding our customer service call center, for years and years, I think most of you may know, we've been based in Tahoe City. That's where we've had all of our call center agents reporting. Well, it's been getting very difficult to recruit new people. So about 14 months ago, we opened an office in Reno, a very small satellite office, and we've been hiring agents there. And thank goodness we did this, because we haven't had one application for our Tahoe City office. And we considered an outsourcing option, but we really feel like we are a small company here, that our roots are here. And so even though our customer service agents are living in Reno and they're working in Reno, we do send them up. They go on ride-alongs, so they know what a bear shed is. They know, they're very in tune. And so that's part of our strategy, is just better customer service, more consistent customer service. And then also for our driver training. So as Erica explained, all the residents pay for 1 can of trash via their tax roll. And then anything above that or in addition would be charged as an overage, unless they subscribe to a 2-can rate. So in order to monitor all of this, the drivers all have tablets and are supposed to evaluate at the moment they're picking up how many they're picking up. And we've been really revamping the training and have had a lot of good feedback from our drivers that they're learning, and some feedback from customers of like, I've been doing this for 20 years. It's like, well, now we have a better trained staff and they're being more consistent. And then, because we do hear from customers that there's no way I had an extra out. We actually hired a route auditor. I think she came on about maybe 3 or 4 months ago. We had been looking, but again, it's hard to hire someone to work in Truckee. And so we are basically holding our drivers accountable by checking up on them. She will go out like before a route and check to see what's there, mark it as she would see it, and then we can compare to what the drivers, marked afterwards. So we do have some strategies. It is imperfect because there is some subjectivity, and I think a lot of times people don't understand what an overage is. Like when we do have some photo capabilities, and so when we have a photo and the customer calls up and says, there's no way, and then I look at it and I'm like, but I can see this. So that shouldn't be extra. And so and Erica's been working on this with Melanie for, a few years now, of getting it out there that if you throw a bag on top of your can, that's technically an extra. So I think that's kind of our variety of strategies here to address that, because we do really take our complaints seriously and want to mitigate them. I think one thing that I would like to, just kind of point out is we actually do a pretty good job of getting that trash collected. We don't often hear that, like, you didn't pick me up, or this is still here. We do a pretty good job in an environment that is very labor intensive and obviously affected by weather. So we're manually out there checking the bare sheds instead of, just driving a truck around and grabbing carts.
Thank you.
Kelly, I think that's great. I always think of overage as a water line, right? Like if your can was filled with water, if it's above that, so
Yeah.
anything above that is an overage.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys.
Any questions on this side of the dais?
Just a really quick one. I don't know if it's for Eric or you, but is there any way to get the compost dumpsters to actually stay up when you open them and not fall back down on you? That would be and I'm being serious, actually. It'd be a lot easier to get your compost into.
And are you
dumpster.
talking about the actual dumpster, like at
The green ones, the ones out here, Glenshire, yeah, at the hardware store. Like when you open them, when you go to lock that or like try to put them in that open position.
And then you're holding with one arm and
trying to like pour, and you're like really balancing, and then you get compost all over you. Yeah,
that isn't.
Just point of feedback, maybe.
Yeah, that's interesting, and
Don't know if anybody else experiences that, but.
That I haven't heard that one. So
you haven't?
No, I haven't.
I will register my complaint tonight then.
Yeah,
Thank
got
you.
it.
Otherwise, your service has been excellent, and I personally have seen significant improvements, especially in the commercial area. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Kelly, I have one just final question. So you said you have some photo capabilities. So do you guys then document sort of any time there's an overage with some sort of photo, and you can go back and sort of be able to compare that to any complaints? Is that what I heard you say?
No, it's some photo capability in the fact that we don't take a photo at every single overage. What we try to concentrate on is anything that might be wildly out of the ordinary, like a mess, or wow, a lot of trash, or some sort of bulky, weird item. Or if there's a customer that, has had a few complaints, hey, can we get out there and take a photo of whatever's going on? There's some limitations, with labor, to take a photo at every single place. It's just, because honestly, lots of customers have just one little overage, and lots of customers are plenty happy with, yeah, I do put out 2 cans every time, or so it's not very realistic on a cost kind of and or technology. Erica knows, we've looked into like body cams, we've really gone through the gamut, and we're actually testing out some new cameras on some trucks that should really work well for the cart routes, like the green cart and the blue cart routes. But because we have so many bear sheds that are just like out of the view of the trucks, it's not an easy solution.
No, that's great. I really appreciate it. I just appreciate you being here and the transparency around all of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Any last questions? No? Okay. So with that, let's move to open public comment. Would anyone from the public like to step up to the podium to make a public comment this evening on this agenda item? Seeing none, we will close public comment, open it up for council deliberations. I will go back to this side. Councilmember Klostad.
Thank you. And yeah, Kelly, thank you so much for being here. Seeing this pretty regularly now, it really is an amazing service, honestly. I know it's not perfect, but I am really grateful for this service that they show up no matter how many inches of snow are on top of the ground and on top of the trash cans and the recycling containers, and whether it's a regular day or a holiday. And I think it's pretty amazing. I also think it's amazing the negotiations that we've done year over year to achieve these minimal increases. And to that point, I learned this morning at Good Morning Truckee that the town of Truckee has negotiated a very good green waste dumpster rate. And just outside of the town boundary, it costs almost 3 times as much. So again, I understand people's frustration. I think we will continue to try to do messaging to explain the ways that you can best utilize your service, because we do have these opportunities for these extra pickups and bulk items in order to minimize those overage charges. And it's a bit complex, but that's in order to accommodate all these unusual circumstances that we often find ourselves in. So with that, I just want to thank staff and thank Kelly for being here tonight, and I am in support of this rate increase.
Thank you. Councilmember Zabriskie.
I'm in support of staff's recommendation. At the same time, I am concerned about the quality of service. I feel it's improved, but I know from personal experience and from too many sincere stories that there are still problems, not just in overage, but in failure to do pickups. But I realize you can't be perfect, and I certainly want to echo Councilmember Klostad's awe with the ability of your service, your organization coming out in all weather and picking up the trash. You're as reliable as the town's excellent plow service. Those 2 services really stand out in a town that gets some really big snowstorms. So thank you, and thank you for being here tonight.
And to this side of the dais, Councilmember Pallavi.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. I support what's already been said, although I do see everything improving, and I applaud I really applaud the proactiveness. I've worked with Erica. Welcome back, Erica. We failed to say that, but welcome back. Both Erica and Melanie have been super responsive, and really all of your staff and leadership team have as well in some of the more challenging commercial situations that you guys find yourselves in, just with lack of placement for a lot of this stuff, and how to manage all that and making things work. So I think we're headed in the right direction, and I support what's in front of us today.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Romack.
I echo a lot of what's already been said. Thank you, Kelly, Erica. Nice to see you again. And then my just additional comment is, staff and TTSD, you guys are creative, so continue to think of new ways to handle some of these situations. It's great, costs have only gone up incrementally every year, but when we look back over the 5 years, it's over a 40% increase. And with all the other costs going up to our residents, we just want to make sure we're not overburdening them. So any great innovative ideas people have, I think we're all ears. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Romack. Well, I think you all have said it really well. So just thank you again to everyone for working on pushing this forward. I think we're at a place where I would entertain a motion if anyone would like to make one.
I will move that we complete our public hearing to approve the residential and commercial solid waste schedules and adopt Resolution 2022-30 requesting the Nevada County Auditor to collect the residential fee on the Nevada County property tax roll.
And a second, please.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. With that, we will move to 7.2, delinquent accounts for residential solid waste services. Erica, I think you're going to present this one as well.
That's right. Thank you, Mayor. All right, so this is similar to our regular services. The delinquent accounts may go on the county tax roll for property taxes. This is unpaid accounts to TTSD for those extra services that residents may accrue, and this is for any balance that is over $50 per our franchise agreement. And so there is a list of delinquent accounts as an attachment. I will note that some of the accounts have already made payment, and so it's not too late for residents to do so. They can call TTSD or do that online, again, at that waste101.com customer portal. Any remaining delinquent accounts may go on the tax roll, and so staff recommends that council conduct a public hearing and approve Resolution 2022-31 establishing delinquent residential solid waste service accounts.
Great. Thank you, Erica. We'll start with questions on this side. I do just want to very quickly acknowledge the emails received by Mr. Leslie Stone related to his specific account and a discrepancy in address. And Mr. Stone, if you're listening tonight, staff has pulled your account from this list of delinquent accounts. So I just wanted to say that out loud tonight. So with that, let's move to council questions. Councilmember Pallavi.
Just super quickly, and just to confirm, I think I read that anybody on that list does have until July 1st to get paid up before property tax bill goes into effect, right?
That's correct.
Great, because I think this agenda item highlighted it for a number of constituents, at least that I'm aware of. So I think they're aware of that now. That was it. Just my only question.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Romack. No questions. No questions. Any questions on this side of the dais?
You answered my question.
Okay, wonderful. So with that, we will open for public comment. If anyone would like to make a comment on this agenda item, you can step up to the podium. Seeing none, we will close public comment, move into deliberations. Any deliberations on this side of the dais? Councilmember Pallavi or Vice Mayor Romack? Anything on this side? Okay.
I was surprised by the number of names I recognized.
Well, now you can tell them to handle it before July 1st. So until July 1st. Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion then?
I'll make a motion. We conducted the public hearing, and I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2022-31, establishing delinquent residential solid waste service accounts.
And a second, please. And a second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Moving immediately onward to 7.3, the Truckee Bioenergy Scoping Study, Findings and Recommendations. And Bob Womack is going to give us a presentation to start us off. As he gets that teed up, I think there's tremendous opportunity here. I'm so excited, Bob, to see what you have to say tonight. I know I'm certainly having a lot of discussions with constituents about fears for wildfire season, desire to have locally generated energy in case of outages. As a community, we can be more resilient. So with that, Bob, I will turn it over to you.
I think while Bob is pulling that up, we also have David Featherman is with us. He's on Zoom. I think that David's going to go through the presentation. Bob, you're going to drive for him so that council members, you can see that on your screens in front of you. And then Bob, if you don't mind to turn your microphone on.
I'll forget again. Yeah, exactly. And thank you for having this tonight. David's going to go through his, then we'll talk about next steps and where we're going from there. So, David, why don't you go ahead and start?
Sounds good. Thank you, Bob. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. I'm going to shut the video off so I can save bandwidth, and then I'll come back. So, Bob, if you want to just flip to the first slide. First of all, thank you, members of the council, for the opportunity to come back and brief you again. It's been 4 months since my last visit, and we've accomplished a lot. We want to basically just update you on the phase 2 scoping study items. Bob, you can go ahead and we'll just dive right in. So since we last met, we've had one more increase in our green waste disposal fee. And so the baseline that we're working against, the increase in the tipping fee coupled with what we think is going to be a tripling of the material is still what we talked about last time, in excess of $1 million of a disposal fee if we continue down the business as usual path. So this is the baseline against which we were evaluating alternatives. Next slide, you'll remember that we looked at a total of 7 different candidates, and I walked you through those last time. We looked at scorecards, and they were spanning things from alternate methods of disposal to making power to making heat. And when we left in February, we had narrowed that list of 7 down to 4. And we had some outstanding questions that we wanted to dig a little deeper into to try to narrow it further. And we've done that. And so if we go to the next slide, I'll just walk you through some of the questions that we have answered here in the interim and where that's led us. The first was to connect again with TTSD and just establish that the current tipping fee, whether they felt that that was stable and that was appropriate for us to use for our modeling. And they felt that the $15 per cubic yard fee is that we were currently paying is hopefully stable. And so we've used that and updated the models. That was a little bit higher than the number we had used in the original models that we shared with you in February. We re-engaged more closely with one of our partners, the fire district, to talk more specifically about the quantities and the quality of the material that they're now starting to receive as part of their Measure T implementation and those programs. And you'll see the breakout there. But when we met in February, we had used a number of 10,000 bone dry tons per year is what we thought the fire district could produce. We've backed that down to about 8,000 now, just based on what we're seeing initially. They're going to give us an update later this summer as they have, a larger data set, basically. And we just want to be conservative at this point in the analysis. So we're going to use the 8,000. We think about 50% of that is of the quality that could be used as a fuel for a biomass energy plant. So that factors into our analysis. Next slide. I think you've already been briefed on the air curtain burner permitting situation. 2 of the 4 scenarios that we were looking at in February involved air curtain burners. We've since determined, and I know you're aware of this, that the permitting requirements are just too steep at this point. And so those 2 have fallen off the list. And at this point now, we're just left with the 2 that we'll get to in a couple more slides. Number 4 is we further engage with the PUD around a couple things, but mainly if we had something like a 1 megawatt power generation system, would they be open to negotiating a power purchase agreement? And all indications are that they are very supportive of a project like this. We've met with them multiple times. They understand and agree that the grid resilience is an important component of that option. And so they're supportive. And, they've indicated that if we were to move forward with the project, that they would hire some outside help on their side to make sure that we could kind of pursue that as a viable option. So, and we'll get a little bit into that when we get to the next couple slides. So, moving on to the next slide, Bob. Number 5 is we further engaged with CalRecycle regarding SB 1383, and just two things really. Wanted to inquire whether biochar, because it's a component of both of these two remaining options, could that be something that we could use as a way to satisfy some of the organics recycling targets that the town has now been provided. And unfortunately, that's not the case. And that was the way we read the requirement, but we wanted to confirm, and they did confirm that. Other interesting takeaway was that you can use recycled organic material as a fuel to make electricity. That's a use that meets the requirements of SB 1383. However, that material does need to be sourced from a permitted facility. And so it's something we have discussed with TTSD, and they're certainly open to that. So that allowed us to kind of refine both the greenhouse gas side of things and also just sort of thinking about fuel procurement for one of these projects. And then lastly was the snow melt system. This was something we had briefly discussed with the airport, and we met with the new management at the airport. And at least one of the options that we're looking at could have a significant amount of waste heat that could go unused if we didn't have enough space heating requirements or whatever. And so there could be opportunity to do something like a snow melt system for part of the airport. And they're open to that idea. So we've left that on the table as something that we would consider as part of a more detailed feasibility study. So those were the items that we were tasked with looking at in sort of this phase 2. And then next slide, Bob, this leaves us with, as I said, the two options that I know you read about in the memo. The first is the biomass power solution, which is nominally a 1 megawatt gasification system that would be coupled with either an engine generator or a turbine generator of some kind to generate power. A project of this size would consume about half the material that we're projecting in terms of the green waste streams, 6,000 BDT a year. However, as I mentioned earlier, we only think half that material will be fuel quality. And so this was kind of sized to meet what we expect on the fuel side. And as was mentioned by Mayor Henderson, one of the interesting components of this solution, of course, is the option to do a microgrid. And we had a specific meeting around this with the PUD a couple of weeks ago. They brought some of their infrastructure maps, and we looked at circuits around the airport and the infrastructure that's in place and what they're expecting to be built out in the next year or two. And it looked very promising that a microgrid of this size could serve not only the airport, but also the fire station, the town hall, the police department, sort of those critical infrastructure, type facilities that we talked about. So all indications are that that's something that is potentially quite viable. And then option B is the combined heat and biochar option. This is a thermally led option that does have the ability to make a much smaller amount of electricity potentially kind of on the backside, but this system would consume more material, as you can see, 9,000 BDT per year, which is about 3/4 of what we expect. A pyrolysis system we would think would have a little bit more high tolerance for less ideal fuel, so we could probably use more of the material. And the other interesting facet of this option is that it could be modular. And so if there were a case where it made sense to build a system that's at a given size to meet the more near-term waste streams that we expect, and then over time, if those waste streams were to significantly increase, you could add additional modules and potentially kind of resize the system as the feedstock stream changed. So I just have the next couple slides, just two kind of graphical depictions of what these facilities might look like. The first is obviously a photo of a facility. This is a gasification system. I think this is actually just 0.5 megawatt, but this is a system in Europe, and this would be, from a facility standpoint, this would be pretty representative of what we're talking about for option A. The facility itself wouldn't be much bigger just because it was 1 megawatt versus 0.5 megawatt, just has some extra equipment inside. And then the next slide is more of a schematic of kind of what this modular combined heat biochar system might look like. I don't know if you can see it, but there's some figures on there to kind of give you a sense of scale, but you can see how this is sort of just modules linked together. And so those are the two that are left standing after this analysis. So the last slide is really just the recommendations going forward. Is if the decision were that we wanted to potentially invest in each of these facilities are, significant investment in in the case of the biochar system, we estimated $7 million. In the case of the gasification system, probably more like double that. So these are not small projects. And so a detailed feasibility study would be something that would normally be the next step to do a deeper dive into things like the feedstock procurement plan and more detailed capital and operating cost estimates, the financial pro formas for, say, a 25-year facility life cycle, probably more fidelity or rigor around the greenhouse gas emissions reductions and carbon sequestration with biochar. Related to that, because both of these facilities would produce biochar, it's recommended there would be a component that looks just specifically at what the market for biochar would be so that we have a better sense of how to value this as an output of one of these projects. And so both of those two studies kind of in parallel could be done in probably another 9 months. That would be a typical time frame. And then assuming one of those projects was viable and funding was in place to move forward, then you're looking at another, say, 18 to 24 months to actually do a detailed design and construction project. So that's, in a nutshell, where we're at. I'm happy to take any questions, of course.
Thank you, David. And yeah, so that's kind of the high overview of where we've gotten to. As you saw in the staff report, it would be about $90,000, or would be $90,000 up to $90,000 for the first part of that feasibility study to really look at the capital cost and how we would get to there. And then about up to $30,000 for the biochar. That's very much a niche market. We continue to learn daily. I did today even more so about some of the biochar stuff that's out there. It appears we are well positioned size-wise in that category, but that's the kind of thing we have to look at to make sure that this actually makes sense and which one of the two options makes the most sense at the end. We did learn today from CAL FIRE, as far as our grants go, that the cost of this kind of a study is very much in line with what they would expect. And simply the reason we didn't get that grant is there was just too many applicants. And really that's what it comes down to. They've asked us to resubmit, and we're going to try and do that, but there's no guarantees. How we're looking at this at the moment is the partners stay the same. Currently, although the PUD has expressed interest in being part of that partnership, so we may be able to take that 120,000, and split that actually 4 ways instead of 3 ways. Those entities still need to go to their board, but we felt it important to bring it to you folks ahead of that rather than wait a month for them to sign on and then come back in a month. So, the recommendation at the moment is to continue forward with an up to cost of 120,000, realizing that we're probably going to be able to change that up dramatically. We just don't have that fixed yet. So, are there other questions?
Okay, so with that, let's move right into questions. Vice Mayor Romack, do you have any questions?
No further questions.
Councilmember Pallavi.
I do. I was the one who asked some of the questions about just Placer County's efforts, and maybe you, Bob, or even Councilmember Klostad can, probably answer these as well. I'm just wondering about sort of parallel efforts or scaling up. I read in your responses that I guess if I understood correctly from the responses, is that we're all combined going to have too much green waste material for the two types of things that are being considered both here and at Cabin Creek. So that's why it doesn't work, or I don't care who answers my question, really. Councilmember Klostad, if you're chomping at the bit, or Bob, I guess I'm just wondering, why not go with one bigger project, just trying to create economies of scale, or if we're just completely on our own sort of timeline and we don't really want to wait for Placer County, and that's a perfectly acceptable answer as well. And I understand.
And actually, you kind of answered it in a lot of different ways. You probably got the answer there, but I was on a call today with North Star, Mike Stottlemyre, and actually they're about a year ahead of us. So that's why it doesn't really make sense to meet up with them, because they're going to be well ahead of us. And talking with them and talking also, TTSD was on the same call. Yeah, there's just more green waste than we're going to be able to handle, and we've got to find a place to put it. I mean, that really comes down to what it is. Waiting on the Cabin Creek is entirely possible, but the infrastructure up there is not in place to be able to increase that a whole lot of size, because the lines, the electrical lines, become your limiting factor. They actually don't have a way to get it. That's one of the things we found.
Is that from a transmission perspective? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's from a transmission.
There's nowhere for the energy to go. Here, we're much closer to things.
It's really size.
We'll use it ourselves.
We'll use it. I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really size of the lines and things like that. We run into that here. How big a circuit? How far can we go? How far don't we go? Very complex, complicated. They start talking, and I'm like, okay, that's why I have experts.
And
Yeah,
and
I think
transmission lines, you lose power the further they are away from you. So having it central here is ideal. Plus the fact that North Star removes enough from their own region to satisfy their proposed facility. We would do the same. We are sizing ours to accommodate what we expect to come out on an annual basis based on our needs and Measure T's ability to extract it.
And I think it's important to note that our consultant, David, worked at the North Star project and has also volunteered on his own time to participate in the Placer County discussions. So he's well aware of what's being counted for their plant versus our plant. We're not double counting anything in that process.
Cool. And then my last question is simply, it looks like we're on sort of a minimum 2-year, most likely 3 to 4 year timeline. And so is our immediate plan, since we did choose to scrap the immediate, whatever that thing was called. Thank you. Sorry. Not my expertise, clearly. Learning a lot. Thank you. Are we just going to continue to stockpile at Cabin Creek? Is that sort of the immediate short-term? What's our immediate short-term solution for all of the green waste being generated at this point?
Really, it continues on as it is, and TTSD is having to figure out how to manage. And they're having, I mean, that's the huge part of the discussion is how do they manage? Where can they take it to? You know, I think we mentioned in the last meeting that it's not even clean enough at times to go for landfill cover. It has to be mixed up and made cleaner. So yeah, right now, unfortunately, it is to continue. Could we come back next summer with an air curtain? It's certainly not off the table. It's just, it's going to take more time than we had to try and get it in place, even for a summer.
Thanks for bringing me along. Appreciate it.
It was the same learning curve, believe me.
Okay, over to this side, Councilmember Zabriskie.
Yes, I think this question's for David. David, if we went with the plant that provides heat rather than electricity, would there need to be underground ductwork to carry the heat?
There would be if the use of that heat were a small district heating system, say at the airport, then yeah, there would be some infrastructure required. And the same is true for a snow melt system.
Okay. Have you done any cost comparison between this type of system, whether either the electricity or the thermal heat generation, with ground source heat pumps, the capital cost of doing a microgrid ground source heat pump? Putting aside for a minute that feedstock's a big driver of this particular project.
Yeah, no, I can't say I've done an apples to apples comparison of that. I will say, I might have mentioned this the first time I briefed you, but typically it's more efficient from a conversion standpoint to do heating. You can use more of the energy content of the wood more readily. Electricity generation, depending on the technology, can be as high as 35% efficient for something like a gasification system to something extremely low. I mentioned organic Rankine cycle generators in the memo. Those are maybe 5 to 10% efficient. So you're wasting 90% of the energy content as waste heat. So, but in terms of the ground source, no, I haven't done a direct comparison of those technologies.
Okay, thank you.
It's something that if it were critically important, we could certainly include in the scope of work and feasibility study.
Right, and it's something that would require a study, I think you're saying.
Yeah, it would have to be part of that scope. if for some reason a direct comparison were valuable.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Klostad.
Just to put a finishing touch on that, Jan, they really are apples and pineapples, right? Those two systems are very, very different. And the ground source heat pump actually requires a very high amount of electricity use. And it wouldn't help us offset or deal with any of our fuels. So those would be the big differences for me, just to highlight between those two different systems. Just for your information. Questions, I think you answered all of mine up front with the exception of a new one, which was since we are authorizing up to $120,000, does that mean that David can get started right away?
Well, I would ask David what his availability is to get started right away.
Yeah, I was assuming if everything continued to move forward that we would just can seamlessly continue, certainly no later than, say July 1st if it took time to do administrative things. But yeah, and then that would put us on track to have, a detailed feasibility report by the spring. And then, there is a scenario where if things kept moving forward at that point and there was a project and you could, and again, I'm basing this on the process we just went through at North Star, but we moved pretty quickly from feasibility study to a procurement process where we engaged a design build firm. And so there is a scenario where this project could break ground and actually maybe even be operating by the end of 2024. So it's not necessarily that it's 3 or 4 years out. It could be as early as 2 years out, 2.5 maybe.
That is very encouraging. Thank you. That's all of my questions.
Okay, I have just one question, and I know I asked this in advance, but I know that biochar is not currently eligible for our SB 1383 requirements, and it sounded like staff is having conversations with CalRecycle from the response, but do we have any indication of timing when they might sort of provide some answers or even directional guidance on this?
I'm going to defer to Hillary if she got any timeline from that.
We do not have any timeline. It continues to be active conversation, but we don't know when that will be resolved.
Okay, well, thank you for continuing to work on it with them and push that forward. Okay, with that, let's...
Can I ask one more question?
Go ahead.
David, I think it's in the report, but I've forgotten it. Can you quickly tell me what portion of the wood fuel would go into biochar and what portion would be consumed?
Yeah, so for the biomass gasification power plant, only about 10% of the feedstock would be converted into biochar through that process. Whereas for the heating and biochar option, it's in the range of 25%. And that second system would actually consume more fuel. So if you were interested in actual numbers, I could give those to you, or I could follow up with you. But it's, 10% for the first option, about 25% for the second option.
Thank you. That's fine.
Wonderful. With that, let's move into public comment. If anyone from the public here tonight would like to make a comment on agenda item 7.3, you may step up to the podium now. Okay, seeing none, we will close public comment and move immediately into deliberation. And I am back to this side of the dais.
Sure, I'm happy to start. Thank you so much to David and Bob. Really appreciate all the work and coordination with all our partner agencies and looking at what's happening. My only comment is the faster we can do this, that would be great. But I know you guys are moving as quick as possible. So I support staff's recommendation, and that's all my comments.
Thank you. Councilmember Pallavi.
I don't think I have anything to add. I think I'm in alignment. We're been pretty good. Feel good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Zabriskie.
Well, I want to move ahead with this project. I do have reservations in the sense that what we're doing is burning wood. So we're emitting greenhouse gases in the name of reducing the emission of greenhouse gases. And that contradiction bothers me. But there are other factors that are motivating us to proceed. I mean, we have the feedstock, and it's, I think it's worth the experiment. It's not my favorite way of trying to reduce greenhouse gases, since it does generate them.
Perhaps, Bob or David, you might want to speak to the efficiency of these types of technologies and sort of emissions potentially associated with them compared to emissions, for example, if that feedstock is left on the ground in our forests.
Yeah, I think I'll ask David if you can respond to that.
Yeah, we went over
Yeah,
this at the last meeting. I'm aware of methane.
Okay, yeah, there is an attachment, I want to say it's number 4 to the memo, but I don't have that, where we took a look at at least three streams, which is what is the fossil fuel offset for replacing either heating or electricity from other sources? What is the avoided decomposition of this material? And then for the biochar, which ends up being far and away the largest component of the equation, there's a significant opportunity to sequester a lot of carbon in that biochar. So that's to your previous question, Councilman Zabriskie, about the percentages. 25% of the material by weight, and then if you factor in that there's sort of a 3-to-1 bang for the buck of sequestering that carbon in terms of its ability to be CO2 if it were released. The life cycle offset is sequestration is significant, and that's in the memo. Much more than would be when you compare that to either the material, as you said, decomposing or combusting in a fire, or even going to a landfill if that gas isn't perfectly captured and reused. There are a lot of avenues where you can reduce the carbon footprint, even though, to your point, you are still consuming the material.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if that alleviates any concerns, but I wanted to offer it up.
Yeah, no, I'm aware
Okay.
of it pretty well. Thank you.
Councilmember Klofstad.
Thank you. I do want to just point out on that point too that this system, just like the air burner system that we wanted to get going, those are highly regulated systems that regulate the emissions, whereas wildfires are not regulated, period. And so I think this is a much better option just in terms of that impact. And my only other comment would say that now that I'm entrenched myself in this world, I get emails all the time about new systems and grant opportunities, and so I'm really encouraged. I do believe that there's a lot of opportunities on the horizon here. Certainly the state of California has recognized the need to manage these fuels in a more productive way than we have in the past, and they are working very hard to find people to do that for them, and we're going to step up to the plate and we're going to get some of that money. So with that, I'm very supportive of moving forward to the next round, and would just echo Councilmember Romack's or Vice Mayor Romack's comment, the sooner the better.
Absolutely. And I think on those grant opportunities, we should definitely be keeping an eye on California SB 833. The CEC will provide grants to local governments to develop local energy resilience plans using distributed energy resources. So I think that's one specific opportunity that we can keep looking at and ensuring that grant, we're tracking against that. So with that, I'm also really supportive. I think the only other thing I would note is that the staff report notes potential, cost benefits for biomass power, and I just want to ensure we're really encapsulating, all of those societal benefits as well. So for example, with a microgrid, like powering critical services during outages. So with that, I hear general support. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I move we approve staff's recommendation and proceed with the budget increase to fund the additional study.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Wonderful. 7.3 passes unanimously. It is 7:09. We will take a 10-minute break and come back at 7:19. Come back to order with agenda item 7.4, our Town of Truckee fiscal year 2023 operating and capital improvement plan budget. Regina is going to present this for us, and I just want to say in advance, you guys have done such incredible work on this. So for everyone who's watching, we've already had 2 meetings totaling 10 or 12 hours on this budget that you've really walked us through line by line. So with that, thank you, and Regina, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. This is the fiscal year 2023 annual budget and 5-year capital improvement project budget. I thought I would start with just a quick recap. As Mayor already kind of alluded to, we went through, we started this process about 6 months ago. In February, staff met with council to receive direction and priorities. Subsequently, after that, we've held 2 public meetings, the first April 18th and the second on May 31st, to discuss the budget details in detail. As council had said, each meeting was over 6 hours, and there we were able to get input and direction at each meeting, and that direction is incorporated into the proposed budget document presented to council this evening. We wanted to bring this to light. The proposed fiscal year 2023 proposed budget is also available on our website. We recommend that folks look at it through this portal. It's a nice way to see it because it's broken out into sections, and with this document being over 400 pages, it's sometimes very difficult to download and view. So having it in sections this way makes it a lot more accessible for everyone to be able to see what's in there. It is under the Government tab, Administrative Services Budget. A good place to start in this document is the letter from the town manager. This letter encompasses assumptions used in the budget process. It overviews challenges the town is currently facing. It addresses funding for projects and priorities, and it also highlights some of the other items of interest this year in particular, the IT hardening, litter abatement, and ARPA funding. So for this budget, in total operating expenditures, it is presenting $38.4 million. That also encompasses 151.8 full-time equivalent employees. It does maintain a balanced budget where revenues do not exceed, or revenues and expenses are equaled. It maintains a contingency savings of 40% of general funds expenses, and it maintains basic services at the same or enhanced levels as currently being provided. What does $38.4 million provide for? This is all of the divisions that are within that budget, which includes additional divisions that are created for council's priorities. On the 5-year capital improvement plan, it currently for the fiscal year 22-23, it is funding $31.2 million on 58 different projects. Over the 5-year horizon, it includes 27 million of general funding, in addition to 5.6 million of funding designations, over 88 projects for a total of $107 million. Changes since the May 31st workshop. We added $200,000 for fuel. That does cover our that does pull from the general fund and our enterprise funding. We removed funding from our community housing commitments as council requested. We added unfunded grant source for our roadway vegetation management project for fiscal year 24 and 25. We added $109,000 of revenue that we're expecting for surplus vehicles. We updated our snow removal reimbursement from the gas tax, which reduced our revenues by $300,000 on the general fund. We added the $500,000 Canyon Springs Stewardship Fund contribution, and then we added the $112,000 revenue and expenses to the public transit estimated actual to align with the budget amendment that went through council this evening, previously approved. The proposed budget is a balanced budget that maintains a positive undesignated cash balance in line with council's goal of $5 million in all but the last 2 years of the 5-year horizon and scope for this budget. This is where we remind council and the public, this is where we continue the 1 in, 1 out when we were doing the budget. And it is every year we have an opportunity to true up and make adjustments accordingly. This process does include an update to the wage matrix. that is presented in the council packet. We've adjusted the ranges by 1.5% for COLA as negotiated in the mid-management, GEA, and division head labor agreements. We added the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Program Manager position to range 19, and this maintains us in compliance with the California Code of Regulations to be publicly adopted and displayed on our town website. And then if all questions have been answered, we recommend that council approve resolution 22-36 to adopt the town of Truckee operating budget and capital budgets for fiscal year 2023, including the proposed personnel changes, and adopt the estimated actuals for fiscal year 2021 and 22 capital improvement projects as amended budget amounts. And we'll be happy to answer any additional questions at this time.
Thank you, Regina. And again, just a huge thanks to the entire team. I know it was a lot of late nights. Let's start on this side of the dais. Vice Mayor Romack, do you have any questions?
Just kind of a clarification, Regina, in your changes. You mentioned that we removed Measure K funding from C-11814, community housing commitments, and that I just want the public to be aware that wasn't us taking away Measure K funding from housing commitments. That was just us not leaving it in designated buckets in out fiscal years. Is that correct? Or can you explain that a little bit more?
Correct. So that funding was put back to our Measure K fund as it was currently allocated in that capital project, but we didn't have specific projects that it was allocated to. So when we do have specific projects, then we would come to council and reallocate that upon council approval.
Thank you. Yes. So just for the public to be aware, we're not removing it from housing commitments. We're still very committed to housing. No further questions. You've answered a lot of them already. Thank you.
Councilmember Pallavi.
Yeah, my only one was along those lines as well. And I switched computers. I don't have the computer I was using a budget, so I lost my notes. But it had to do with the reason why we pulled that one out. Wasn't there a equal pullout that we were going to do from one of the from the building sustainability upgrades, and we were going to pull that out of that CIP?
It was already funded, but it was over 5 years, and they just pulled it all in to be funded
in year one. Never mind.
Yeah.
Thank you. I remember that. Okay, that was my only question as well. Thank you.
Over to this side, Councilmember Zabriskie.
My questions were just asked and answered.
Wonderful. Okay, Councilmember Klofstad, no other questions. We will open public comment. Would anyone from the public like to step to the podium to make a public comment related to item 7.4? Go ahead, sir. You can come right up to this podium here. Just hit the little button so the red light goes on, and you'll have 3 minutes to make your public comment. There is a timer over here. I was always taught not to interrupt, but I'll interrupt you if you get to 3 minutes just to keep us on target tonight.
Do my best to keep it.
And go ahead and just say your name for the record if you would as well.
My name is Ryan Dierks. First of all, thanks everyone for the service here. Not here to berate anybody by any means. I know these are infinitely complex issues, but I just wanted to express and kind of, I'm sorry.
Hey, can you hear me?
There you go. That's better.
I just wanted to express, from the standpoint of a long-time local here, business owner, 3 restaurants. Pardon my attire. I was making tacos 30 minutes ago. And then just to represent my team that I work for, and kind of stress the urgency of these housing matters, right? And I hear what you're saying about kicking the can down the road a little because there's no projects currently proposed. But something that I've been thinking a lot about lately is that getting more involved in the political process here, maybe more as a liaison, so to speak, and then hopefully you as well, dealing with the infinite complex issues like this that involve state governance and CAL FIRE. I know it's complicated, not bagging on anybody here, but I am saying that I did start as a busboy, a bartender, a contractor, a tradesperson, a business owner, 3 business owners, and now my kids work with me every day I have with them at the restaurant. I'm losing talent like the attrition is atrocious. And even the people who are here are disenfranchised because they don't have time for their lifestyle anymore. And they're ready to leave, right? And the incubator that allowed me to help create the success of this town is dwindling quickly. So I encourage you to maybe try a different approach here. Rather than wait for somebody to come to you, because I know there's developers in town that are proposing projects that might not fit the bill, but maybe it's better to reach out to them and work with them to kind of like speed this process up, you know? Because it's critical time. If we kick the can down the road another year, I came here from Vail, Colorado, and I know what happens. The first thing I did here is buy a house because I knew I was going to get priced out. And thank goodness. And if you've been here long enough to know the story, literally everyone I worked with at the Cottonwood started the majority of businesses in downtown Truckee today and created the cultural vibrancy that attracted all the people here that ironically is pushing all that vibrancy out. So I know your job is tough, but work with us, let us work with you, and work with the contractors, and let's hustle on this. So that's all I got. Barely in time.
Thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome. I gotta go back to work.
Good luck with the rest of the evening.
Can you bring us some tacos?
Yeah, the best taco makers in town.
All right.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, thank you. Would anyone else like to step to the podium to make a public comment on item 7.4? Okay, seeing none, we will close public comment and move into deliberation, and I will go back to this side of the dais. Vice Mayor Romack.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Again, thank you to staff for all their hard work. Thank you to Ryan, who just made the comments. I know he had to leave, but for the public listening, that was something we talked about at our budget discussion, that we do have some funding available that's designated to help out with housing programs. And we're always looking at innovative projects and ideas. And, you know, we encourage developers or folks with ideas to come talk to staff because, you know, if you've got a great idea and we've got funding, maybe we can make things work. So, you know, I don't want folks to think, yeah, maybe I misspoke a little on removing Measure K funding. It wasn't, we're kicking it down the road. If there's housing projects and ideas coming to us, we are ready to make that happen because I think we all understand the dire need in our community. So just wanted to share that. Again, other than that, thanks to all the hard work on this budget. We've had lots of conversations already, so I'm happy to move forward with staff's recommendation.
Thank you. Councilmember Pallavi.
Yeah, I'm also going to support the budget tonight, and I do also want to add to the record very much alongside the comments that Vice Mayor Romack made, and specifically with regards to CIP to 2013 and 2014, and just make sure that they're repeated again. I know I have already stated this in previous budget discussions, but both of the funding sources for those two CIPs, the first one being a new CIP for the, you know, town-owned lands, things like that, and then the second one being the new below market rate housing program or the deed restriction program. Just, you know, accelerating those as opportunities become available, making sure that we are publicizing and making known that those funds do exist to our community and to our developer community, and even more specifically, as we look at the below market rate housing program, finding a equitable distribution. You know, I think you heard it here both from Ryan, a business owner, but it's really the business community that is being stretched to really their wits' end at this point. That's what we're all doing. We're all covering extra shifts. We're all doing our best to simply keep the lights on. People are shutting down for a day or two a week, and really when we are looking specifically at the below market rate housing program, having 3/4 of that funding being in the residential bucket and only about a quarter of it being in the developer/business bucket, you know, just being amenable to flexibility as we spend those dollars going forward. If opportunities arise and we see more happening in one direction or the other, making sure that both our council is aware that we, are willing to be supportive of moving funding around as need be, but also making sure that our staff is being creative, flexible, and open to both dialogue and opportunity as they present themselves. So that's really my message for tonight, is just to sort of repeat the drum I've been beating and to, make sure that the community is aware that, we're really the town's not in my opinion, and this is also why I have some heartburn on 2013, but I've been assuaged for the most part, making sure that the town isn't really in the development business. We have private enterprise that's much, much, much better at accomplishing those goals. And so making sure that the town is a facilitator, is a convener, and is an enabler when we have the right projects and the right programs in front of us. And we do have the money now. It's here, it's landed. So in my opinion, let's get it spent as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Pallavi. Councilmember Zabriskie.
I realize there is a tremendous disconnect between what the town council and the town staff have been doing to expand housing opportunities across the income spectrum. While employers in this town cannot find housing for their employees. So let me say, we are working at it. It's great to have Lynn on as our new housing leader. We can't make it happen overnight, but we sure are trying to. That's all I have to say. I'm ready to accept the budget.
Okay, Councilmember Klostad.
I am totally supportive of the comments made. I know this is a really critical issue for all of us, and I want to encourage those developers and contractors out there that have ideas to submit preliminary applications and let us help you figure it out. We are very interested, and as Councilmember Pallavi has eloquently stated, the funds are there, so we would like to spend them. And then just looking at more robustly, I want to say how proud I am of this budget and what we're doing in terms of all of our operations that really are the vast majority of the budget. It gets very highly overlooked, but I want to thank the entire staff for all that they do in keeping all of their departments within those budgets and allowing us to provide those services and continue to expand our council goals and create connectivity, mitigate our wildfire risks, and protect the environment. So thank you for all that you guys do to make all of those things happen, and including this robust housing program.
Well, thank you so much. I also support the comments made, particularly related to housing, and that's an incredibly important issue for our community. And I'm also proud of this budget because I feel like we are tackling a lot of the critical issues for our community and also maintaining services and operations at the level that we've historically been doing for our community. And that's so important. I mean, I think we often tend to overlook things like infrastructure, our roads, but it's so critically important that we maintain our roads for things like community connectivity, for things like evacuation routes. And so that infrastructure and the budget going into that infrastructure also supports goals and priorities for this community as well. So with that, I would love to have a motion to approve Resolution 2022-36. Maybe on this side of the dais?
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-36 and adopt our operating budget for the next fiscal year.
And a second.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And our budget passes unanimously. Thank you again. A huge round of applause to our town staff because it is a massive lift. Thank you.
And we're done.
And we got through another budget. All right, 7.5 is our local road safety plan adoption, C1919, and Becky is going to give the presentation for this one tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So let me get myself set up here. Okay, yeah, so we're talking about the local road safety plan adoption, hopefully adoption tonight. Just to start, what is this local road safety plan? Well, it does a few things. It identifies and analyzes crash patterns and trends throughout the whole town. It develops a safety improvement recommendations based on those. It considers roadway safety beyond engineering, so it talks about enforcement, equity, education, engagement, evaluation. It also establishes a vision and goals and some objectives and priorities. It also provides a way for us to increase partnerships and collaboration. What I will say is it is a living document that's meant to sort of change, and it's also a great start. And this is probably the first time that I'm aware of that we've kind of looked at traffic and crash data throughout the town as a whole. In general, the engineering division has looked at crash data and based on service requests or specific complaints. And I know the police department has as well. We have separate systems. So this is kind of the first time that we've kind of looked at it all as a whole and gotten a good perspective of how things vary throughout the town. So the local road safety plan is the project itself. The plan was funded primarily with Highway Safety Improvement Program funds. And a local road safety plan is our new requirement to be eligible for the next round of HSIP funds. So it's great timing that we're getting this adopted because there's another round of HSIP that's been released, and staff is definitely looking into options for specific projects. It was developed by the Kittleson Associates, and LSC Transportation Consultants was a sub to them as well. There were really two parts to the public engagement process. The first is that we had a stakeholder group, and I just want to take a moment to thank everybody that participated. We had 2 meetings, and we also gave them an opportunity to review the draft report before it went out to the public. So I'm going to try to keep this presentation short, but I am going to just name everybody really quick because I think it's important to just recognize everyone's good work. So we had a number of town staff involved: Danny Renfro, Dan Wilkins, Riley Morrison, Robert Womack. And then we had George Rojas from TTUSD, Dylan Crosby from the Hospital District, Kevin McKechnie from the Fire Protection District, Sergeant Eric Egedy from the CHP, Fernando Riviera from Caltrans, Allison Pedley and Paco Lindsay from the Trails Foundation, Annabelle Cordoba Souza from the Sierra Community House, Claudia Hansen from the Glenshire Devonshire Residents Association, and then Brian Yon and John Mitchell from Tahoe Donor Association. So thank you to them. One of the tasks that the stakeholder group had was to put together a vision. So we prepared this vision statement and had them review it. And it was one of the guiding principles of the document. So what is the vision for this plan is the town of Truckee will improve the safety of all road users for all modes of transportation within the town by reducing fatalities and serious injuries. Now, the second part of the public engagement process was an online survey, and it was from August through September of 2021. It was in English and in Spanish, and it was accompanied by an interactive map. It asked questions like, what are your travel patterns, and what do you see as being safety issues and throughout the town? What do you see as being behavior issues, and where do we need infrastructure? We had 181 people respond, and then 37 additional comments on the map, and about 86% of the people were full-time residents. Some of the survey results, there's a whole appendix to the report that summarizes the surveys. And so if you're interested, I'm definitely not going to go through it all today. I think one thing that's important to note is a survey representation. One thing that Kittleson did is they kind of compared the representation we had to the census data. And so some of the findings they had is that white or Caucasian people were maybe overrepresented. People from the ages of 35 to 64 appeared to be overrepresented based on the census data, and higher incomes were overrepresented. So I think it's just something to be aware of, and maybe some also there's further discussion in the report, but it's just something to maybe some room for improvement. some major themes that we heard from the survey is speeding, lack of bike facilities, maintenance issues, poor quality of the infrastructure, or poor driver behavior. And there was a lot of suggestions in there, and this is really, summarizing them, that speed management, about doing increased enforcement or education, traffic calming, additional signage, lowering speed limits. There was a lot about intersection and crossing improvements, like looking at roundabouts or the rapid flashing beacons for the crossings, sight distance, right turn restrictions, biking improvements, congestion management, and maintenance. So we took all that, the survey and the public outreach that we did, but also really a lot of this report just focuses on the crash analysis data. So our main source of data for that was the statewide integrated traffic record system. That is a database where the state takes the accident reports that come in so the town submits collision reports to the state. They compile it all in a database, and it's publicly accessible. And we have those mapped through on a map as well. For the crash patterns and trends, we looked at a 10-year period. For the more specific crash severity mapping along the roadway segments and the intersections, we looked at a 5-year period. I'm not going to get into a lot of the details on the outcomes. There's some really good infographics or some graphics in the report that kind of summarize things well. I particularly like this one on the right-hand side. It shows that only 6% of the crashes are actually involve walking and bicycles, but the serious injury and fatality crashes are much highly more represented by those bicycle and walking types of crashes that involve bicycles or pedestrians. The most common crash factor was unsafe speed, but it's important to note that often is identified even when people are traveling too fast for conditions. So that could be somebody traveling too fast on a snowy road. So it's not always somebody traveling over the speed limit. 50% of the fatalities had alcohol involved, compared to 34% statewide. And hit object was the most frequent type of crash for fatal and severe crashes. There's a number of there's 4 maps like this in the report. This is what this is called is a crash severity scoring map. And so what it does is it takes it scores all the crashes in terms of severity. So a fatality is a higher weight, obviously, than a property damage only. And so what this does is tries to map out, compared to the rest of town, so the darker areas represent areas where there's a higher crash severity score than compared to the rest of town. And all these locations doesn't necessarily mean that it's a high crash location as compared to like the state averages. In general, we tend to have lower crash rates than the state averages, but it's a good comparison throughout town. There's another map like this for just the bicycle and pedestrian crashes, and there's one for summer and winter in the report. One of the things that came out of the surveys and the data analysis is these emphasis areas. So we with the stakeholder group, kind of came up with these emphasis areas for the local road safety plan. So high crash frequency and severity locations, kind of referring back to that map I was just showing. Speed management, safety for people who walk and bike, driving under the influence, and then coordination and evaluation. And the report itself kind of has some subtopics underneath all those that gets into what can be done to address those. The other thing this report does is identify potential engineering or infrastructure countermeasures. So I won't go through all of them, but they're set up into different subjects. So pedestrian crossing enhancements, there was a number of them identified, like a pedestrian hybrid beacon, which is where you have actually it's shown here on the bottom right-hand corner. Or installing pedestrian refuge islands, like was just shown on the top of the screen here. Bicycle intersection treatments, such as bike lane extensions through intersections or bike boxes, which are shown on the right here. This is where bikes can kind of overtake an intersection at a signalized intersection. Signalized intersection and treatments. And unsignalized intersection treatments like improving sight distance or installing roundabouts, which is something we like to do around here. And then also some segment treatments to deal with different, if you've got some curves that maybe there's been a lot of crashes occurring at, or doing speed feedback signs, which we do have a policy on. The report also identifies some non-engineering countermeasures on like education strategies, such as doing road safety education to children, or vulnerable road user education, enforcement, progressive ticketing or speed enforcement in school zones, emergency response, and innovative approaches. And I'm sorry that I'm kind of going through these slides kind of fast, but there's so much information in this report that I'm trying to be a little concise. So I just want to let you kind of know what's in there. There were 4 goals identified in the report, kind of under the vision. The first being to maintain an accurate collision database and routinely evaluate the roadway safety. The second being to educate motorists, bicyclists, and pedestrians on how to travel safely and limit the potential for collisions. 4, implement projects that make streets safer for every person. And 3. And then 4 is integrate equity into the safety decision-making process. And the report itself, underneath all those goals, has a number of actions listed as well. I took the liberty to kind of italicize and bold some of the ones that we're currently already doing. We do have a database that we've had, but we don't actively, evaluate it on a town-wide basis. So that's one of the things that's going to come out of this. But educating motorists, bicyclists, and pedestrians, that's some of the stuff. We've been doing some of that stuff, but we can continue to do it and improve. Implement projects that make streets safer for every person. There's some of these things that we're kind of already doing or working towards. So again, we can talk about these more if you have questions, but I'm going to kind of breeze through this stuff. So we got a fair amount of public comment on the draft plan itself. We posted it and gave opportunity for people to review it and provide comments. And so this is a summary that's in your staff report on what kind of public comment we received. In general, we received public comments about bicycle safety, bicycle infrastructure and maintenance. Maybe there's too many roundabouts. There was one concern about the Pioneer Trail connector, maybe taking out the trail that's currently connects up to Tollin. Questions about the West River Street project timing. And then in general, comments about safety and traffic calming and bike and pedestrian facilities in Tollin. Speeds on Northwoods, we got 2 comments on that specifically. And then a comment about ice buildup at Carpenter Valley Road. And so these are just the comments that we received on the actual draft plan. We also received some additional comment on the staff, on the item tonight. We received comment from Susie Tarnay. She had indicated, just to summarize, that we should consider changing town priorities to produce safer streets and support. She had indicated her support for the protected bike lanes. And then Laura Lindgren had clarified some comments that her comments on the traffic calming and bike pedestrian infrastructure pertain to Northwoods Boulevard. And I think I didn't have time to get into the presentation, but I think we got a follow-up comment from her just saying that she was requesting that we include a statement that Northwoods Boulevard and Tollin in general would be considered in traffic safety planning going forward. So what's next? So the next steps is we get to implement the plan. There are some things I just want to point out that we've already started. So we are working on kind of a bike safety campaign in line with Bike Month. So we've been working with Trails Foundation to come up with some messaging, and Braun's helping us out with that. There's actually a bunch of people at the town that are helping with that. You might not have noticed, but when we restriped a section of West River Street this summer, we actually made 6-foot bike lanes instead of the regular 5, and we're just doing an evaluation on what that does to speeds. So we're going to try that out. The signal backplates that was on one of the figures I showed earlier, the yellow backplates that are on the signals, we've actually purchased those, and we've got Caltrans working on installing them. So that's another thing that we're doing. We also are working on evaluating potential potential sites or projects for an HSIP application coming up. And there's already sort of some discussions about maybe doing a striped buffered bike lane project, just a pilot project in a couple of locations where we have the width. So I think I'm excited to kind of get going on some of this stuff. So again, I'm sorry I went through everything so quickly, but in the interest of time, I'm happy to answer any questions. Our recommendation is to adopt the Resolution 22-35, which would adopt the Truckee Local Road Safety Plan. And that concludes my presentation.
Becky, thank you so much. That was great. And I know there's a lot of additional detail in the report, so thank you for that. Let's start over here with questions. Councilmember Pallavi, anything? Vice Mayor Romack?
I have a question. Just, I know a lot of our CIP projects that we just approved, or some of them kind of tie into this. So maybe is there a way next time we look at CIP projects to include a line about like implements part of the local road safety plan or fits those goals or something to that effect? Just, I don't know, to make it more like, okay, yeah, this is a great idea. Let's continue to move forward with it. Or
no, I think that's a great idea. I mean, the map that I showed earlier, when you look at that, you can kind of see, oh, West River Street. Oh, we're doing something there. You know, the downtown intersection. Oh, we're doing something there too. So I think that's a great idea.
Excellent. That's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Klosted.
No, I asked all my questions in advance, and thank you very much for those answers. And I look forward to where we go with this.
And thank you for all your questions in advance. Councilmember Zabriskie.
Yes, this is a follow-up to Councilmember Romack's question, because it struck me when we did go through the CIPs on the budget, we didn't explicitly rank different streetscape projects in terms of the number of crashes or severity of crashes, yet we did kind of reorder some of the projects because of a concern about safety for bicyclists and pedestrians. So the next go-around in the budget, I agree, it would be nice to have some ranking just in terms of safety. So that's one of the factors that helps us deliberate on where our priorities should be for streetscape improvements. So I guess, I'm sorry, that wasn't really a question. What do you think, Becky?
I think that's great. I mean, now that we've got this plan, we can kind of go back, and if there's a question, I mean, actually, you kind of look at the projects that you have have prioritized, and you guys have done a great job picking the ones that are hitting those areas. There's, when we're looking at the HSIP funding, we're actually looking at that mapping a little bit more, and there may be some projects that are in our current budget that we'll try to get funding for, and maybe maybe there's some funding for some kind of like a next phase of like maybe it will pull some more up into the priority as the funding's available. So
I see. Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. I don't have any further questions, so we will open public comment. If anyone would like to step to the podium, you can step right up here. Please state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes. There's a timer over here, and just hit the button to make sure the little red light is on.
Hi. So nice to see you guys tonight. It's really nice to be back in person.
Sissy, I'm not sure if this is on. Yeah.
The red light is definitely on. Is it not working?
Rory, can you hear Ms. Turney?
What did you say? Oh, now it sounds better. Sounds better now. The red light was on. All right. I'm a little short on minutes now. Okay, so I just have a couple of comments. I sent you guys a study. What they're finding now is that protected bike lanes protect all users of the road. It creates traffic calming. It makes people drive slower. Speeding was one of the main causes of our accidents. It protects the cyclists obviously as well. So I already sent you that. Hopefully that will be available for the public if anybody wants to see the study. I had a couple other things just I wanted to quickly mention. First of all, if we're using 6-foot bike lanes, it's not generally recommended because it's so wide it looks like a lane and people start driving in it. If we have a 6-foot bike lane, then we have 2 feet to at least do striping buffers there. And we have a 4-foot bike lane. So I would love to consider that. I did speak with a relative of the person who had that pretty bad crash. 2 bikes crashed on the bike path and a teacher went to the hospital. So I have a couple questions about that. First of all, I am a biking advocate and I don't know what the biking speed limit is supposed to be on that trail. Do you guys? And can we post that? Can that help avoid some of these accidents in the future? Some people have said it's 20, some people have said it's 15. I don't know. And I bet you neither of them knew either. Second of all, I am now spending time working for transportation for the school district. So I spend a lot of time in front of the high school and I love every day seeing all these kids not getting in a car, but getting in their e-bikes and the regular bikes and taking off. Unfortunately, what I'm also seeing is my son is the only one wearing a helmet because he knows that I require it. So I looked it up. It's a California state law that you are supposed to wear a helmet until you're 18 years old. And I don't see any enforcement happening. I don't know if that would help, but a $25 ticket might make people think, maybe I can wear a helmet. Maybe my hair doesn't look that bad. So I would love to see some enforcement of that. Or another way, if we can bring it into the high school and somehow figure out some way to make it cool for high schoolers, that'd be great. So, in closing, I would just like to say, please don't wait to consider protected bike lanes. I would hate for it to be the Susie Tarnay or the Jackson Tarnay Memorial Bike Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie, for your comments. I think we have one more who might want to make a public comment. So just a reminder, please state your name for the record, and your 3-minute timer is right on this end of the dais.
Thank you. My name is Tim Cross. I live full-time on Northwoods Boulevard. We've owned our home since year 2000. My wife has lived here in Truckee full-time with one exception since 1990. In view of the upcoming vote on the city's local road safety plan, we're here today for the record, and I hope this is going on the record, to state that there is a speeding problem and a lack of enforcement on our mile-long section of Northwoods Boulevard between Balzano and Swiss Lane, and as well as other sections of Northwoods and other streets within Tahoe Donner that are not adequately addressed in the LRSP. My wife and I will not be taking any questions after this reading of our statements into the city record. We have approached the town engineering and the police departments numerous times, starting back in 2015, with no constructive help being offered from the engineering department. When we asked to see the most recent traffic and speed survey, that staff could not find one for us. We were told that the most recent one was conducted in 1998, where the speed limit was increased from 25 miles per hour to 35 miles per hour because of the 85 percentile rule. It should be noted that in a residential district, the state of California vehicle code requires that a traffic and speed survey be conducted by a professionally licensed engineer of the state of California and to conduct all traffic and speed surveys. Starting at the end of the Labor Day weekend in 2021 and beyond, my state certified civil engineer conducted his own informal survey. He built a blind so that nobody could be observed, so that he could not be observed by passing traffic. He recorded many cars and trucks with carrying trailers exceeding 60 miles per hour on our stretch of road between Balzano and Swiss Lanes. The posted speed limit is 35 miles per hour. In comparing data supplied to me and published for the Tahoe Donner Members Association by 2 former Truckee police chiefs, and using tables from the Institute of Insurance and Highway Safety, the increase in the volume of traffic from 1998 to present increases the probability of a fatal or permanent disabling accident to 4 or 5 times more likely than in 1998. It is a guaranteed fact that an accident of such proportions will happen sooner or later. Imagine what the cost might be to this city if there was a wrongful death or permanent disability claim filed against this city, and it will happen. As a result of having to suffer the hardship of being constantly reminded of the speed and danger of the traffic that travels on our street, we are giving you actual notice tonight of a dangerous and defective condition of public property. And I am demanding that a new traffic and speed survey be conducted by an objective state of California certified civil engineer, not associated with the town of Truckee.
And Mr. Cross, thank you for your comment. We are at 3 minutes. I apologize for interrupting, but to be fair and equitable to everyone, we always stop at 3 minutes. Thank you for your comment.
Hi, I see the red button is still on. My name is Cheryl Cross, and I'm certainly related to the gentleman who was just here. And I wanted to discuss the actual statistics of the survey that was done in September around the Labor Day weekend of last year. In my previous career, I was a semiconductor process engineer for 40 plus years and used statistics every day on a daily basis. And I took the information that was provided by a NIST certified radar gun and took the 286 data points and did analysis for that. It certainly showed that the 85th percentile for the stretch of street that we were taking the data from was a 46.7 miles per hour speed. And that means that 10% of the people were going over 50 miles an hour. We did clock people at 60 plus miles an hour on that section of street. There are animals, there are pedestrians, there are bicyclists, and it is an unsafe condition. And it is a main arterial for Tahoe-Donner, I understand that, but these kinds of conditions on the main arterials around Tahoe-Donner exist at all kinds of intersections, including Alder Creek, Fjord, and the other side of Northwoods Boulevard. And if you have ever tried to cross the be in the bike lane and tried to cross to the Legacy Trail from the other side of the street, which is what is state law that you need to do. You're traveling with traffic and you need to cross that street. There's no crosswalk there. And it is very unsafe. I've seen many people struggling to get across that street. There are also trailheads within Tahoe-Donner that do not have crosswalks on them and have the same kinds of issues where people are sitting there trying to make it across the street and looking for cars. So it would be much better if we had better surveys that were done across the town in order to provide the speeding data that we would need in order to properly set speed limits and increased enforcement for that speed limit. And I thank you very much for...
That's time.
Thank you. And thank you, Mrs. Cross, for your public comment on this agenda item. Is there anyone else who would like to make a general public comment on item 7.5?
Hi, my name is Cal Nishimori. I like to ride my bike, and I like all the bike paths that the town has built. I support the speed limit for bikes to keep everyone safe. I think that there should be a speed limit of 25 miles an hour, because if there's more than 25 miles an hour, people can get hurt in a crash if somebody's on the wrong side, or if somebody's either in the road or somebody's on the wrong side of the bike lane. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Would anyone else like to make a public comment on this agenda item tonight? Seeing none, we will close public comment and move into council deliberations, and I will return to this side of the dais. Councilmember Pallavi.
This is a good first step. I support us adopting it. I think any, near-term roadway improvements, we've been really successful with a lot of our streetscape improvements, and I would simply encourage us to continue doing so and sort of evolving as we go. I know we've had a couple of discussions, especially lately, about Legacy Trail and paved bike, both education, helmets, accidents, safety. So I would just encourage our staff to sort of evolve with a lot of those conversations as we go and really look at, the investments that we can make in the near term. And on some of those, I texted Dan, I was in Knoxville, Tennessee this past week and found a really wonderful sign that I really liked, and it was just a bike saying bikes may use full lane, and I think that's a lot of the issues also that we have in our downtown corridor, and I'm certainly not one to say we need so much more signage. I think, especially as that Stockrest Springs roundabout went in, I think I counted like 35 signs up there in the span of like 100 yards. So, I would encourage us to use signage judiciously, but really where we can make an impact and where we are seeing some of those conflicts. I do know that downtown and West River corridor are so challenging for bikes and e-bikes and cars to all get along, and not everybody knows, those of us in the know we can take the lane. We've been educated on that. I found that out up here on the dais about 3 or 4 years ago, to be quite honest, right? And so if I'm finding out about that up here on the dais, I can assure you our community has no clue that they can take the bike lane in some of those zones. So that was just a great example of, I think there's some small things that we can do, and then Mr. and Mrs. Cross left, but I know that our police department has a really great traffic enforcement program where they can deploy some of their tools as well. So just encourage our staff to continue to evolve and take a lot of these recommendations and put what we can into action quickly. And as we follow through with our bigger projects, really look at, how we can continue to enhance our roadways and our mobility and continue on the path that we're on, because I do think we are on a positive path forward. So it's proud to be a part of that, and I would support our adoption of this. Thank you.
Well said, Councilmember Pallavi. Vice Mayor Romack.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Councilmember Pallavi just said. Now hearing about helmets and bike education, it just got me thinking about the bike rodeo that's happening this weekend, and you have the 4 to 10-year-olds, which is fantastic, and maybe that's something we keep in mind. Yeah, what other things should we be doing for the 11 to 17-year-olds, and maybe you already have some of that in the works, but I think that's great that staff is already looking and working to do some of those educational components. Also to Councilmember Pallavi, how, this is a good step forward. Becky, I liked your comments. This is a living document, so we can constantly be adjusting it, seeing how the 6-foot bike lane works, restriping or doing the green lanes or whatnot. So I think this is a great first step, and appreciate your work on this, and support moving forward with staff's recommendation.
Thank you. Councilmember Klofstad.
I too am very supportive of this, and I'm grateful that we move forward with this analysis. It's a great baseline, and I think as our community understands what this document is and what we and that it is a living document, I think it's going to continue to get better, and we'll be able to respond to that. As my questions indicated, it appears that there's some very easy, low-hanging fruit with some of the striping and bike boxes and crosswalk visibility enhancements, and I would be very supportive of staff trying to incorporate any of those that they feel that they can in their current projects, because those seemed like very low-cost, very simple solutions that, again, we could just be testing out, figure out what works, how our community responds to it. I know that's going to be a big part of it. change is challenging sometimes, so testing these things out, giving our community the opportunity to give us feedback before we deploy them everywhere is a policy that you guys have always practiced, and I would support in this.
Thank you for that. Councilmember Zabriskie.
Right. I think staff's done a great job helping take another step. I remember there is a reference to how short-lived our striping is and how expensive it would be then to try and solve everything with more striping. But that's one of the reasons I'm so proud of our staff, is they can come up with another answer and think out of the box. That's a wonderful thing. E-bikes were certainly not considered in our 2025 general plan. That's fertile ground for our 2040 general plan update, and I'd like to encourage Mr. Cross, wherever he is, and any other members of the public to consider submitting comments on our 2040 general plan on improvements we could make in terms of safety in light of the higher speeds that e-bikes go, and in light of what we anticipate to be a great increase in bike ridership in our town.
Yeah. Mayor Henderson, can I just add one more thing? I just really want to add to that. I mean, their kids, the ACMS, for example, I mean, how many, we got a middle schooler here. I mean, there's probably 150 e-bikes parked at ACMS right now every single morning. And those kids are coming from Glenshire. They're coming from all over town, Sierra Meadows. And it's a really serious change to how our bike paths are being used. And I do think we need to kind of re-examine our look at some of those strategies and get into the middle school and the high school really with a very concerted effort, because it's truly amazing. It's awesome. The independence that the kids have is fantastic. The independence that us as parents have is even more fantastic. But it's really changing the traffic dynamic on our paved trails more so than I think any of us contemplated when we started putting these into use. So I do think that is deserving of sort of a relook as we go over the next couple years in the near term too.
And the perfect opportunity to focus on that is in our mobility element coming up at the combined meetings, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. I support this. I'm excited about this. I think we have some opportunity for some really quick wins, which is always exciting to see, and again, to pilot some of these things. And it is going to be sort of a community educational process as we make some of these changes. Things are going to look, feel different. Our traffic is going to flow differently. So with that, I do support it and would entertain a motion. Perhaps from this side?
Sure, I'll just keep us going. Make a motion to adopt Resolution 2022-35, the Truckee Local Road Safety Plan.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And 7.5 passes unanimously. So on to our last discussion item this evening, 7.6, ratification of the Climate Transformation Alliance Charter. As always, we'll start with our staff presentation, and Jen is presenting this one for us.
I am. Thank you. And thank you to Mr. Frisch for being here with us tonight. I had indicated if I had a crystal ball, I would guess we'd be talking about this at 9 o'clock. So thank you for coming early. Appreciate that. Okay, so this is a request for council to authorize the town manager to ratify the Climate Action Transformation Charter as a governing member. I'm going to go through the slideshow presentation really quick, and then Mr. Frisch can add anything that he would like to do. We have been working on this since October-ish of last year. It was the concept for this came from Councilmember Klofstad, Mr. David Diamond, and Ms. Krista Finn, and this is what resulted from their original vision with the support and a lot of effort and help from SBC in leading the process. So this first slide is our brand, which I think we've shared with you previously. And then if we move forward, sorry, I'm having technical. There we go. The CTA is a public-private partnership. The vision is that North Lake Tahoe region will be net carbon neutral by 2045. And there's 5 different mission statements included in here: work together, engage in a process for public understanding, identify, explore, and encourage interim projects, explore funding opportunities, and communication with our public and our partners on climate initiatives and what's happening with our climate. The membership includes local governments, community organizations, businesses. The governing members are the 3 initiating members: the TDPUD, the Truckee Tahoe Airport District, and the Town of Truckee. And then the founding members are the members that we are currently in discussions with about signing the charter. The program for the CTA includes technical support, research and knowledge management, and public education and advocacy. In addition to the charter that we provided, there was also the strategic plan that SBC worked to help us develop. The core values of the strategic plan are positivity, collaboration, consensus on action, respect, integrity, equity, and transparency. And the scope of the CTA and the strategic plan is to really reduce greenhouse gases through a number of different techniques, including improvements to our built environment, transportation networks, and green procurement processes, just to name a couple. There are 4 goals outlined in the strategic plan for organizational development, organizational charter, membership, and budget funding is the objective of goal number 1. For goal number 2, communications, we have developed communication materials, identify and recruit communications channels, secure media opportunities, establish online community dashboards, and engage in public engagement and outreach. Goal number 3 is data and information, where we're looking to have shared information platforms, aggregate GHG inventory to establish regional baselines, establish and maintain regional project tracking database, utilize data to establish targets, and complementary climate coordination. And then the last goal, goal 4, is project development and process. Identify and implement 2 short-term projects, identify and implement 2 long-term projects, and develop longer-term community action for climate resilience. That's the end and the summary of the documentations that we've provided. Again, we're asking for authorization to endorse or ratify the charter as one of the governing members. And I'd like to invite Mr. Frisch up if he would like to elaborate or add anything else. And again, thank him for his leadership and guidance in getting this far in this process.
Sure. Thank you very much. Steve Frisch, I'm a resident of the town of Truckee. And
Steve, I don't think it's on.
Okay, now, they were right. The red light's on. Okay, is that better? Yes. Great, thank you. Steve Frisch, I'm a resident of the town of Truckee and the president of the Sierra Business Council. So first, I'd like to say thanks a lot to the town and to the Truckee Downer Public Utility District and the Airport District for their leadership on this issue. Carbon zero by 2045 is a big goal, and it's going to take a lot of work on behalf of a lot of people in the community to achieve that goal. And I think one of the strengths of this approach is that it is a public-private partnership to try to achieve that objective. Government can do a lot. Government can play a really important role in leadership, but it's going to take a community-wide effort to actually implement, embrace the programs that are necessary, and achieve the behavioral change that will lead to carbon neutrality. So I think it's really exciting that this is a public-private kind of approach to achieving that objective. The second point I wanted to make is that many of you may have noticed that California passed a state budget on Monday. Within that state budget, 3% of the state funding, that is the non-federal funding that is passed through in the budget, is dedicated specifically to climate adaptation and mitigation projects. But if you look at the discretionary portion of the state budget, that is the portions of the budget that are not directed to public education based on ballot propositions, and public health based on legal statute. 8% of the state budget directly funds climate adaptation and mitigation projects, and another 10% of the state budget is tied to greenhouse gas emission reduction metrics in some way. This is a sea change in how the state government is beginning to spend money. And I think the really exciting opportunity of the Climate Transformation Alliance is to put our region in a position to be more competitive for state funding to achieve these objectives across a broad range of sectors, including renewable energy, landscape management, wildfire mitigation, transportation improvements, etc. So I applaud the town, the airport district, and the public utility district for their leadership and encourage you to authorize the town manager to endorse the charter for the Climate Transformation Alliance. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve. Okay, let's move into council questions. I'll start on this side.
I have no questions. Thank you.
I'm not surprised. Councilmember Zabriskie, any questions?
No.
And on this side, any questions?
I think they were mostly asked, but we're not even being asked for a funding request at this point, nor anything else. So we're not even there yet, right? We're just getting started. Yeah, great. Just checking. Got to get up to speed again on this stuff.
Getting started, but with a tremendous amount of work behind the getting started part. I really want to recognize that. Let's open for public comment. Is there anyone from the general public who would like to make a comment on this agenda item? Seeing none, we will close public comment and move to deliberation. Councilmember Klofstad, you've done such incredible work around this with so many great partners like Steve and others at some of our other special districts. Would you like to kick off deliberation?
I would love to. Thank you. I'm so thrilled to be at this point. And Jen, thank you for the overview. It was really perfectly done. I really don't need to add anything to it other than this really is the crux of the private-public partnership coming together that I envisioned over 12 years ago while working as the sustainability manager at the school district, because it was at that point that I realized it didn't matter how much I did there. It was never going to be enough. We all had to do our part. And this really gives us the opportunity to bring everybody together, share those resources so that there doesn't have to be a sustainability manager at every agency and at every business, that we can collaborate and rely upon each other, share resources, share information, and possibly really make a difference in our community. So I'm thrilled to be here. And the only thing that I would add to this is, one of the things that's very important to me at these meetings, and they are once a quarter for 2 hours, that's what we're committing to here in this charter, is that every agency that has electeds, that they have an elected official and a staff person there at every one of those meetings. And so I have attended every single CTA meeting so far. I know that I won't always be here. I would like to ask if there's another council member that would be willing and interested to serve as an alternate so that we can make sure to always have that representation. So that would be the only thing I would add to our deliberations and discussions.
I think that's a great question, and I think it's one I posed to staff in advance as well, related to having sort of a formal designation for this. So thank you for that. Councilmember Zabriskie?
There are two reasons that immediately come to mind why I'm terribly grateful for all the work that Anna and the others, David and Krista and Steve and the others, did to put this Climate Transformation Alliance together. First, in the work I have tried to do as a member of this community on environmental issues, and then most recently in regard to the Climate Action Plan, it's really been driven home to me that we need a regional approach. So much of what we're trying to accomplish in the Climate Action Plan is going to depend on what happens at the regional level. And I'm finding that in working on the Climate Action Plan, I'm reaching out and having to ask other people in this region how they are approaching the task of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And so it's great to see an organization that's going to formalize that relationship and assure that people are talking together and making the best use of their collective wisdom and their special expertise. The second reason I'm terribly grateful for this is the scope of this project. This project is not only looking at the built environment, it's also looking at the natural environment and the multiple ways we can enhance and preserve our natural environment, whether it's biodiversity, reducing wildfire risks, having healthier forests, providing for sequestration. Our surrounding natural environment is our economy. I often hear about how important our economy is in terms of our local retail activities, but all of our retail activities ultimately depend on our natural environment. And this Climate Transformation Alliance recognizes, and it has as a goal, protecting and improving that natural environment. So I am really glad to be able to support this project wholeheartedly.
I do believe you quoted a few of the forest fire exhibit points of information, so thank you for that.
Just worked it right in.
Yeah, beautifully done.
Over to this side, Vice Mayor Romack.
Sure. Thank you, Councilmember Klövstad, for all your work on this, and staff and Steve. This is exciting. You know, reading through the goals and the ideas, it does to me also sound a lot like the initial stages of Mountain Housing Council, and bringing together regional partners, having regional conversations, even meeting quarterly, and I think and establishing baseline metrics, you know, with the housing needs assessment. And I think, you know, seeing how the Mountain Housing Council opened up new opportunities, allowed us to share ideas with our partner jurisdictions, you know, it excites me for this as well, because got to see how something like that has already worked in our region and how it can work on now another big issue that we all need to tackle. So excited to support staff's recommendation on this.
Thank you. And Councilmember Pallaby.
Yeah, I certainly echo everything that's been said and appreciate the leadership that's been put forth. It's really amazing to see, and I thank you for all of that, because I know how hard it is and how much you do. So it doesn't go unnoticed, trust me. I think I just want to highlight one of the things that I think affects us and a lot of the work that we're trying to do in the community is really objective number 5, which is engage in public engagement and outreach. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we continue to have in a lot of these segments. And the more objective information that's really out there, and the more education that we can provide to our community, to our elected officials, to our staff, and really in making that information accessible and understandable. And, you know, I'll use that example of item 7.3 tonight, right? Like, we're so above my knowledge base on that stuff, and you guys are just sitting here like, this is like secondhand stuff, right? But you know, we have almost 20,000 people out there that we need to bring, at least in the town of Truckee, that we need to bring on board. And I think finding ways to educate and communicate in ways that are approachable is definitely one of the challenges we have on this topic, and not getting mired. You know, we could all talk to Steve for 3 hours about this stuff and never even blink, right? And I think that's one of the challenges is let's make it accessible, and let's get the community and the region on board to make those behavioral changes. And that has been something I set out to do from day one up here. So thank you. And I support us moving forward.
Wonderful. Well, I'm seeing unanimous support here, and I think for very good reason. And I'll just sort of reiterate, thank you for your leadership on this. I think something that's also really exciting to me, which you mentioned, is this concept of a public-private partnership. I was at the U.S. Conference of Mayors last weekend, and some very high-ranking officials from the Department of Energy and Department of Transportation were talking about all of the funding opportunities that will be continuing to come out of the infrastructure bill, including discretionary opportunities this fall. And they said how crucial it is to have the private sector involved with public agencies to actually move us meaningfully in the directions we want to go. And that was on things like EVs and transportation changes and a lot of different initiatives that we're really going to be focused on to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and move us to a better, more resilient future for all of us. So, you want to say something?
Just to echo that, that's one of the reasons why I feel so fortunate to have Sierra Business Council. They really have their finger on the pulse of the funding stream. And so not only did they bring incredible knowledge and depth and understanding of this complex subject to the table, but they also bring the funding opportunities. So thank you for your leadership.
Absolutely. So I would love it if you would like to make a motion.
I would love to move that we authorize the town manager to endorse the Climate Transformation Alliance as one of the governing members.
And before I have a second, I am just recognizing that we didn't actually have or discuss sort of unanimous support for an official designation and an alternate, which I certainly support.
Okay. Who wants to be the alternate?
And I am happy to be the alternate unless someone else wants to be that alternate. It's a space that I play in a lot, so.
Whichever. I'd be happy to do it. I'd be happy to have you do it. Sounds wishy-washy.
And we'll get a chance to redo it again in December anyway, or whenever we do it.
In December, that's true. So there's only going to be 1 or 2 meetings between now and then. So
It'll be the kickoff meeting on July 15th, and then probably at least one more quarterly meeting after that, so 2 meetings. And yes, I think I'd love to have your background and knowledge in this. I think it would be a great expansion of our knowledge base.
Councilmember Zabriskie, are you comfortable with that?
Anna needs to get out more.
Okay. Okay. Well, I am happy to do it and appreciate that nice comment. So.
Okay, so my motion still stands with the addition of Mayor Henderson is the alternate assigned at this point.
Wonderful. And a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Wonderful. On to council reports. Let's start over on this side. Councilmember Zabriskie.
Councilmember Zabriskie, if you could turn your microphone on.
I know it's pretty important stuff. So, had a Truckee River Basin Watershed Group meeting where we looked at the updates for the summer season on stream flow and reservoir levels. You can guess what the projections are. Met with Anna and Alexis talking about the GPAC and moving forward on that. There's involved with the Prosser Firewise community, and they held a big education day last weekend, which was successful. And then I attended the TMA, the Management Association's last meeting. That's about it.
Thank you. Councilmember Clifford.
Well, it has been 3 weeks, you guys remember, right?
Setting us up for a half hour.
Yeah, you are. Good morning, Truckee this morning, virtually. Hopefully I'll get there in person someday soon. Attended the Dirt Grand Fondo event at the airport, which was pretty cool. Reach Code meeting last week to plan our kickoff meeting for that committee that will be in a few weeks. It is a lot of technical data and really a big nut to crack, so staff and the consultant are working really hard to craft that agenda and presentation, and Jan and I no, you weren't there. You missed that one. Yeah, it's okay, we missed you. I provided a lot of feedback. CTA meetings, planning the launch, and finally roping in those last few founding members, getting those signed charters back because the hope is to launch it with the 3 governing council and 20 founding members, a mix of public, private, and nonprofit organizations. So we're trying to make sure we start out with a good balance of those. And then attended the general plan community workshop here at Town Hall. Staff did an amazing job with putting together the poster boards and the summary of the elements and how they changed. It was really useful to get that, the visual displays and the audio feedback from them. It was, I think, a very beneficial process for myself as well as the community. And then we held our final single-use plastic foodware ordinance meeting. And now public outreach will begin with the anticipation of an ordinance coming to council sometime in September, October, after some robust public outreach. Then Truckee Day was chilly, but a great success. The townwide party was so fun. I forgot how much fun that was. And then I want to thank Councilmember Romack for attending my last forest fire tour. We'll be doing another one in July, and then attended a chamber mixer that was just delightful.
Wonderful. Thank you. Vice Mayor Romack.
Yes, I was at the TNT TMA with Councilmember Zabriskie, and Becky did a presentation on the Trails and Bikeways Master Plan and had great maps showing what trail system we had in 1993, which was nothing, and then how it has evolved over time. So I thought that was fantastic. Attended the microtransit working group. Again, there's the ribbon cutting on June 23rd. I'm going to be on vacation, so I'm really bummed, but I hope all my fellow council members will be there to cut the ribbon. Did the forest fire exhibit. Thank you, Councilmember Klovstad. That was fascinating. If anyone hasn't done it yet, I encourage you to do it. Just a lot to learn and a lot to think about. Attended Truckee Day. That was a ton of fun. It was fun seeing a lot of town staff out there and having mugs out there as well from the police department. Also attended the Seroptimus Wine and Restaurant Fair, which saw Councilmember Klovstad there as well. That was great. Hanging out with her a lot, I guess. And I saw her at the General Plan Community Workshop last week. So thanks to staff for putting that on. It was nice to talk with staff and talk with public and see what their interests were. And that's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Pallavi.
Yeah, thank you. I look forward to hearing about the mayor's convention. That looked amazing. But
I have some updates for tonight.
Yeah, cool. Just a couple quick ones for me. I was out of town doing some work stuff, but wanted to give you guys a quick update. Visit Truckee Tahoe had a pretty major board changeover. So after the past month, we met with about 8 different prospective new board members and narrowed it down and just approved 3. So wanted to give you guys a quick update. We have 3 new board members. First one is Carrie Rassick. I'm going to butcher her last name, and I apologize. I don't know how to pronounce it, but Carrie Rassico Bate or something around that. But she's the 10-year co-owner of Truckee's local family-owned vacation property. She's got 6 employees and manages 160 properties. In addition to both long and short-term rentals, Charles Haber, who's the general manager of the 109-room Tahoe Truckee Hampton Inn and Suites, who really brings a breadth of experience in sort of big chain hotel industry, and has also sat on a number of T-bids and a number of other California communities, and so is really familiar with sort of T-bid type of work. And then Stephanie Myers, who's the new general manager of Gravity House, formerly known as Cedar House Sport Hotel. And Stephanie worked with Patty for over 10 years as well, so really brings a lot of Patty's commitment to sustainability with her, and hopes to continue a lot of what Patty
Patty really put in place within the tourism sector in town. So we have a really crazy brand new board over there. So we're going to be getting everybody up to speed and really looking forward to having some new blood and moving things in a really great direction over the next few years as that continues to evolve. And then the only other, Truckee Day was great. Had a nice time out in Glenshire, cleaning up some stuff out there, and then had a great opportunity to meet with our 2 Civic Spark fellows. Had lunch with both of them, Isaac and Poncho, today, talking about life and employment experience and where they see themselves over the coming years and career advice. So I told them, out of all of us, I was like, I don't know if you want to be talking to me, but we had a really nice lunch, and those are 2 really smart folks, and I wish them the best. As we, sorry to lose them, but at least one of them might stick around in Truckee, and hopefully we have some good Civic Spark fellows to fill their shoes in the coming year. So that's it for me.
You all have been so busy. I know it has been. So I've had several meetings and conversations. So for example, spoke at the Rotary Club. That was really about our budget process and what our budget looks like, projects coming out of that. Good Morning Truckee. I think what I really want to highlight though tonight, to Councilmember Pahlavi's point, is from my attendance at the U.S. Conference of Mayors, which was a truly incredible opportunity. USCM is a nationwide bipartisan organization of mayors, and it was a several-day event. So I just want to highlight a few key items, and I'll be debriefing with Jen and some of our staff here as well as follow-up. I spoke on a panel about innovative housing solutions alongside Mayor Darrell Steinberg of Sacramento and Mayor LeVar Stoney of Richmond, Virginia. I met one-on-one with Gabe Oma. Gabe is the Special Assistant to President Biden and Deputy Director of the White House of Intergovernmental Affairs. He basically supports municipalities, so we talked through a wide range of issues and different types of funding coming down. I'm not going to go through everything I attended, but a few highlights. I attended a forum on the electrification of the U.S. transportation system. That included presentations and discussion from Andrew Wishina, the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Climate Policy at the Department of Transportation, and Charles Small, the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Intergovernmental Affairs, also at the DOT. I went to the Mayor's Climate Protection Awards and learned about a lot of really different and innovative models that cities are using to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, some of which we're doing here. So that was really exciting to see. We had a keynote delivered by the Honorable Vice President Kamala Harris. I attended a climate roundtable on strategies for attracting investments related to climate project financing. As part of this, so there are different committees comprised of mayors from throughout the country. The committee considered and adopted several resolutions related to advancing climate solutions. And these resolutions generally urge Congress to provide funding for specific areas and actions. And some of those that were adopted by the U.S. Conference of Mayors align very closely with our work in the town. So those included resolutions to decarbonize our building stock, to support renewable energy and storage, to support municipal fleet electrification conversion, to renew and fully fund the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program. So definitely attended a lot on sort of the energy sector side. And Jenna already mentioned this, but just my last plug, mountain biking. Next week on Thursday. Come join me, as Jen mentioned, hosted by the Chamber. I'm so grateful for that, and we'll have a lot of fun and talk a lot about town issues as well. So that's it. With that, I will adjourn us to our regular meeting, Joint Truckee Town Council and Planning Commission General Plan Overview on June 28th at 5 p.m. at Town Hall. Thank you, everyone.